Good afternoon. This is a public hearing of the Chatham Conservation Commission being held on March 23rd, 2022, in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Chatham Wetlands Protection Bylaw and Regulations. My name is Bob Rawls and I serve as the chair. Hearings are broadcast live on Channel 18 and are also recorded for the on-demand archives available on the town's website. Today's hearing is being conducted by remote video conference, originally pursuant to the governor's emergency COVID order, and now under an order allowing remote public meetings through July. The agenda and copies of documents for review today are posted on the town's website. To all participants, after hearing from applicants, representatives, and interested parties, I will ask for comments and questions from commissioners. Please remain muted unless you are speaking. If you're attending by phone, mute using *6 and use *6 again to unmute. If you are on the Teams platform, indicate that you wish to speak by using the raise hand feature. If you're attending by phone, please unmute with *6 and address the chair. When recognized, please identify yourself for the record. If you are not a commissioner and you are on the Teams platform, please keep your camera turned off unless you are speaking. The commission will vote on each matter by roll call so that we have a record of a quorum. I'll now ask each commissioner to indicate their presence. Vice Chair Bob Delvecchio.
Present.
Janet Williams.
Present.
Karen Latin.
Present.
Mary Sullivan.
Present.
Elise Gordon.
Present.
Associate Member William Doherty. And I have reached out to William because we haven't heard from him in a while. And Associate Member Cheryl Meservey.
Present.
All right, thank you. We do have a quorum. Nikki Smith, the town's conservation agent, will lead us through the agenda, including whether any items are continued.
We have no official continuances. I do have one change. I reached out to 2 different representatives to do an agenda switch, if you will. 19 Stoughton Lane was at the very end, so I moved it after 70 Queen Anne, before 4 Homestead. 4 Homestead and the 3 Tulipy Run ones are all the same representative, and the Tulipy Run ones are, arguably are more complicated ones. So to get 19 Stoughton representative out of the way, I went ahead and switched that. So I reached out to all of them and they were all fine with that. So that's the only change. And with that, we will start with the request for determination of applicability for 328 Witta Road, Annabelle LLC, map 13K, parcel 11, W14. There's an SE number on there, but I don't know. RDAs don't get those. And that is a path to the beach. If you remember, a meeting or 2 ago, they had applied for a certificate of compliance, but I found in the order of conditions that they were supposed to apply for an RDA for this path. That's probably been there since the 60s or 70s or something. So it's really just a matter of procedure following the order of conditions. So the path already exists. It's just to get on the record. And I don't know if Bill is here and has any other comments.
Sounds like not. All right. And yes, there's the path in snow and not snow. So as Nikki says, it looks like a pro forma situation. Anybody have any questions? Concerns? Okay. I have none.
So this would be a -2
Karen,
determination.
Karen actually has raised her hand.
Yes. Jeff, I don't know if it matters, but on the application it says 348.
I'm watching on the computer and talking.
Excuse me, someone talking. Just a minute, Karen. There's someone either on the phone or somewhere who's not muted and talking. Would you please mute yourself? All right, go ahead,
I
Karen.
don't know if it matters, but on the project description, the address is 348, not 328 for this application.
All right, it doesn't, I mean, it's not that important, but we will make a note on the, I mean, we can basically just cross it out and write the correct address so that we don't get, so it doesn't get
Okay.
lost in the wrong file.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, very good. Good catch, Karen. All right. Anything else from anyone? If not,
I'll make a motion that we, for 328 Witter Road, that we determine a -2 determination.
Latin second.
roll call vote. Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Elise,
Aye.
and I vote aye. So that is unanimous.
Next, we have the notices of intent. The first one is 162 Kelly Lane, Christian and Georgine Pulitzer, map 11D, parcel 13A D12, SE 10 3537, removal of deck, construction of a patio, and mitigation.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
For the record, Thad Eldridge, East Southeast. We've provided you with revised plans that include the removal of about 150 square feet of lawn and the installation of a sign for no kayak storage in that location. I believe that was the last question that we had for this application. And if there are questions, I'm happy to answer them.
All right, thank you, Thad. Yes, I think you did respond to the comments, at least that I made. And I was talking with Nikki about whether or not phone numbers should be on the sign. I think maybe not. The phone number could change. I think that's actually Nikki's phone number.
That's the Conservation Division.
Is that the Conservation Division line?
Yeah, the Conservation Department.
Okay, Nikki, is that what you understand?
Yep, that's the office line.
Okay, all right, then that's probably going to be pretty stable. So yeah, I see where you're allowing some of the vegetation to no longer be mowed. And there's gonna be a mow strip. There's gonna be a sign, so hopefully no kayaks are stored there in the summertime. Anyone else have any comments, questions? Okay, I would ask that in the comment section in your plan for you say meadow acting as a buffer to, let's see, no lawn area to be abandoned and invasives to be allowed to take over per the Conservation Commission. I would ask you to change that to say to naturalize. I understand that there are invasives there, but the intent there is just to not mow it. It'd be ideal if the applicant wished to restore the area, but I think that's in the offing.
Well, that would require a few properties getting together because you have invasives everywhere.
Well, I understand. I'm just saying it's not going to happen. I agree. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Unlikely. But anyway, I'm just asking that you change it to be naturalized.
Naturalized. We can add that.
And
I mean, we were adding the phone number because many people in the association have been allowed to store their kayaks here in the summertime. So we're expecting once this happens, there's going to be some pushback from the neighborhood.
most likely. Who answers the phone there, Nikki?
Usually
Crystal.
Crystal, sometimes me.
Okay, all right.
I mean, again, if the association wants to come to us and come up with some sort of kayak storage plan, I think everyone would be willing to do that. We just don't want them stored all over the place. It's a huge problem in all of Cape. So we're just trying to nip it in the bud, one property at a time.
There we go.
See, we have a hand up from Robert Duncanson.
Yeah, good afternoon, Commissioners. Robert Duncanson, Director of Health and Natural Resources. I am just wondering why we are using the phone number for the Conservation Department Division. This is private property. It's an issue with the neighborhood association. And I don't think it appropriate to have a town phone number listed. I think if folks that have historically stored their kayaks there are unhappy with that, they should be able to reach out to an association if there is one, for an explanation as to why, or to the property owner for the explanation as to why it's allowed, as opposed to reaching out to the town. I think other than that, the sign is fine. I would simply suggest there is no need for the phone number.
We can certainly take the phone number off. This is a condition being imposed by the commission.
Well, or you could just revise your plan. You're going to revise it anyway,
Mhm.
just to take the phone number off. No, I agree with the comment. I'm not sure that a phone number is appropriate here. If people want to get a hold of the Conservation Commission, it's pretty easy to do that, or the Conservation Division or whatever. Bob, you have your hand up.
Yeah, Chad, I just had a question about the sign itself. Is it going to be pretty permanent? What kind of materials will it be made of?
I would guess just a wooden sign, and in a few years it'll rot away, and at that point people should know not to put their kayaks there.
Okay, that's yeah. Hopefully it will communicate properly, and then we'll just have to be temporary.
All right. Anyone else? Hearing none. I guess we'll just. I guess this can be the motion with provided the couple of changes that were requested or submitted. Yeah.
And the work session is on the 6th.
Correct.
Okay, so I'd make a motion to send 162 Kelly Lane to the work session with the appropriate changes for April 6th, 2022.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Elise,
Aye.
and I vote aye.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
All right, the next order or notice of intent is 86 Capri Lane, John and Tama Andres, map 13C, parcel C13, SE 103550. Sorry, my phone's ringing. Construction of a garage addition, driveway, and deck expansions.
Good afternoon, David Clark from Clark Engineering. I hope you can hear me okay.
Loud and clear.
Okay. So as stated, the Andres are looking to put a small addition off the south side of the dwelling and also expand the deck to the south. The new addition requires some alterations to the driveway, so we show a new turning area further south in the limits of the existing driveway. The resource area is a bordering vegetated wetland located to the east. That wetland discharges through a culvert that goes through this property and discharges to a wetland on the other side of the 10-foot wide way that goes from Capri Lane out to Oyster Pond. That wetland area then ultimately discharges through a ditch to the oyster pond. The addition itself is going within, the footprint of it is within the existing stone driveway. And then the deck expansion is primarily within a formal landscape area. The trees that are shown in that area were trees that were planted when the house was rebuilt, probably 10 plus years ago now, or 12 years ago. Nick Crawford is on the meeting too to discuss the mitigation plan. If there's any questions regarding the site plan, I'd be happy to answer them.
Hi, this is Nick
go
Crawford
ahead.
from Crawford Land Management. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So like David explained, it's fairly straightforward. The addition's going over the driveway, and we're basically mitigating for the expansion of the driveway for the new turning area and the expansion of the deck. We've proposed the removal of lawn area in the amount of 1,100 square feet, as shown in the gray hatched area on the plan, along with supplemental planting of native species in that area in order for it to naturalize. We would intend to join up to and run the split rail fence around that area as a delineation into the future that it's a mitigation area. And that's about it. It's just lawn removal and restoration. So if anyone has any questions on the restoration plan, I'm happy to answer them.
All right, thank you, Nick. I'll just open it up. Anybody? Questions or concerns?
David, this is Nikki. I'm confused on why the ditch from wetland to wetland isn't considered a resource like it is on some other projects, which I think even your next one might have the same thing.
The culvert, you mean?
Yes. So it's not considered a river or stream or anything.
Well, it's not a blue line on the USGS map. The wetland to the west, where it discharges out to Oyster Pond, is identified on the USGS map, but this section is not. Even under the Rivers Act, it clearly states that the riverfront area is measured from where the pipe outfalls or where the entrance is. So this is a shown on the USGS map as not being a river. So I don't think I would ever call a man-made structure, drainage structure, a resource area.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I was just questioning it because,
No.
I mean, there's mosquito ditches and everything that end up falling under resource areas.
No, I understand, but this one is entirely subsurface.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else? Janet?
Thanks, Bob. David, I have a couple quick questions. The first is, you have listed land subject to coastal storm flowage as a resource area. And as I look at the site plan, I can't find any elevation below 14, except for the 13.8 new one. Is there, what am I not seeing?
It's on the north side of the house where we're not doing any work. So it's the coastal bank associated with Oyster Pond is where the floodplain is located on this property.
Okay, so, but it's not
within the work area, no.
So it's below the coastal bank, or 2018 down at 12 there. That's, oh, I see, floodplain contour at 12. Okay, so it's not, okay.
And apparently we had a small technical glitch and we lost some of the presentation. We'll repeat what we think we lost. And I think that was David Clark was talking about answering Janet's question. Janet, you want to just restate your question?
Yeah, we were talking about making sure that the bare earth that will be exposed once those cedar trees are removed underneath the deck won't be subject to any erosion. And David was just saying that they're going to put pea stone gravel down in that area, which seems appropriate.
Yes, so pea stone gravel will probably be put down in the areas further under the deck, in the areas where there would be some sunshine. I would suggest to the homeowner that before they plant anything in that area, that they check with Conservation Department that the plantings are appropriate.
And that was my next question. Is there any plan for landscaping around the new addition?
No, there's no plans at the moment, but
Okay.
but obviously native plantings are better than loaming and seeding it. So I was going to suggest to the homeowner that, but before they do anything in that area, that they check with the Conservation Department that the plantings are appropriate.
Perfect. All right, that's it for me. Thank you.
And the homeowner is quite aware of the commission's planting list. This will be his fourth, I think, or the property's fourth alteration. There was initial house construction, and the mitigation plantings associated with that, which are kind of confined by the post and rail fence on the southeast corner. And then Blue Flax did a mitigation, invasive species control on other portions of the property with the Andres, so they're quite aware of what's required. And also, speaking of that project, we know that order is still outstanding, as well as a second order that dealt with replacement of stairs and a retaining wall, and we are actively pursuing filing requests for both of those.
Bob?
Yes, David, where the four cedar trees will be removed, one is off the deck somewhat. Can that be saved? The one that's not in the immediate area of the new?
I'm sure with the deck expansion, the homeowners aren't going to want the tree right there. I can ask them to make every effort to relocate it somewhere else on the south side of the property. But I even if it was me, I don't think I would want that tree right there.
Okay, and so the others couldn't be relocated as well?
I'm not the one to answer that. I don't know if Nick had got a good look at them.
Yeah, we can take a look, but just given their proximity to, we could certainly take a look, but given the proximity of those trees to that retaining wall, it'll really just kind of depend on how those two have kind of, the retaining wall and the trees have kind of intertwined, and we likely wouldn't be able to get a big enough root ball off of all three of them because they are planted so close together. So there may be the possibility, there could potentially be the possibility to relocate maybe one or two of them, but I think that trying to relocate all of them would be wouldn't be a good decision, or wouldn't be successful.
Okay. All right. Yeah, anything that you could do to save them would be great. Also, the driveway expansion, it's going to be an aggregate shell mix, so I suppose it won't be permeable.
No, expansion.
Are they done with that discussion already?
No. With Allison's? No, they haven't even started.
Whoever's
I'm
talking,
sorry.
would you please mute yourself? *6 if you're on the phone.
I'm sorry, Bob. I didn't understand your question.
Yeah, so where the new driveway is going to be expanded is
Yeah.
the current driveway is an aggregate shell mix. So is that permeable or not?
Yes, I think the order of conditions for the previous project required that the driveway be of pervious nature. So I would say, yeah, it's just
Okay.
it will be, or it is, and the expanded driveway will be.
Okay. And just in case we get a heavy rain, is that new section of the driveway going to be pitched away from the wetland?
I mean, I don't specify that, but I can take a look at the existing spot grades out there to see if we can do that. That your suggestion makes sense, in that we'd want to pitch it towards the grass area.
Right. Okay. And that's all I had. I know Bob has some other questions about the mitigation area. And I'll let him ask those. Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, thanks, Bob. Yeah, I guess I will then jump in since I don't see your hand up. And that is, Nick, this is for you. The four cedars coming out, I think there are no trees proposed for the mitigation area.
That's correct. We had, when we developed this plan, we had just considered those.
So I think you dropped out there. Still dropped out. Couldn't hear the last part of what you said, Nick.
Remuted, but we considered those cedar trees as part of the formal landscape, since they were all planted above the retaining wall after the house was constructed. So we didn't see the need to mitigate for the removal.
Could you go over that logic again? I'm not sure I'm following it.
So we considered those cedar trees there as a screen and part of the formal landscape, and not part of any naturalized area or natural vegetation that ever pre-existed on site. So we didn't propose mitigate them tree for tree, but you can see in the mitigation planting area, we do have, let me just get a count. upwards of 60 native shrubs going into that area, in addition to the 1,100 square feet of mitigation.
Yeah, you do have a lot of shrubs. I don't know. I never considered the fact that if a tree weren't pre-existing, that it didn't count in terms of
Well,
removal.
that was at least the logic that we took to prepare this plan that's before you. For example, if there was a red maple tree in the formal landscape in the entry area, I personally would consider that part of the landscape. And, if they wanted to remove it to change their landscape, I wouldn't necessarily consider that something that would need mitigation. So that's the strategy that we've, approached this plan with. So, please correct me if you don't agree.
I guess I can't say that I agree. Were they native cedar? Are they native cedars?
They are eastern red cedar, yes.
So they're serving as a native tree. So,
well, I think
it's good that they were planted, and now they're being removed and not replaced. So anyway, it seems to me that there's an opportunity is there a reason why we couldn't have replacement trees in the mitigation area?
I had spoken, so this is kind of the second iteration of the mitigation plan that we've done. So I had spoken to the applicants, and they had made mention that the neighbors that are to the, where's the north arrow? Neighbors to the south on the same side of the street. They had it sounded like they had some sort of discussions about trying to keep the vegetation, lower than a canopy height, so that they could, the neighbors could potentially keep the view that they have over the property.
Okay. So they want to retain their view.
Right. So the shrubs that we've proposed in that area, over time and as they naturalize, the tallest ones should reach a height of 8 feet-ish. The smaller shrubs 3 to 4 feet. So we tried to honor what they had asked and propose plantings that were conducive to what they had explained to us.
Okay. Well, that's helpful to know. Let me mull that one over for a moment. I'd also wondered whether or not the applicants want to keep the boat where it is, which happens to be within the mitigation area. And I was asking myself whether or not that could be moved out so that the mitigation area becomes less disturbed. So I will ask that question.
We do have the split rail fence running around the area to delineate it from the areas that will remain lawn. You can see that we held the mitigation area off of the street a little bit so that you didn't have to walk around on the road to get to the boat. There was still a small strip of lawn to be able to access over the property. I think there's a picture in our land management plan that shows the boat that they do store there, and it's a very modest little sailboat on a single axle trailer. Yeah, so it's nothing, it's not very large by any means. And you can see that there's already a break in the hedge that they have planted along the street there. So it made the most sense to just continue storage of the boat in that location in the off season, and while still being able to, wholly mitigate for the project.
Okay, well, so let me move on to the way I thought about it a little bit later, and that is behind the mitigation area, proposed mitigation area. It looks like there probably are invasives all along there.
Yeah, correct. There are white poplars and incursions of, shrub honeysuckle, oriental bitter or Asiatic bittersweet in that area. And I believe, David, correct me if I'm wrong, that had been something that was potentially previously restored or at least previously used for mitigation. So we knew that we wouldn't be able to double dip and use that again. So that's why this 1,100 square feet is in a totally new location.
Oh. So you're talking, are you saying that there was mitigation? Actually, can you, I don't suppose you can, anyway, yeah, you certainly don't want to double dip. But my guess, the thrust of my thinking here was, how do you protect this new mitigation area such that it doesn't now, as I understand, become invaded, but like the other mitigation area that you just described? And, often we talk about mow strips.
Yep. So that would be the way we would keep whatever's on the other side of the fence from encroaching on this new mitigation area is just through active maintenance. The same as if it had been a property line against an area that would remain invasive. So it'll just be, continual treatments to make sure that those poplars don't spread clonally into that area. And, that's what's being proposed at this moment in time. We did have a conversation with the applicant about, potentially re-restoring that area. But it wasn't something that was put on this proposal.
Yeah, but well, sure. But my point is, can we introduce a mow strip to try to protect this mitigation area?
It would be, we can certainly hold the plantings off of the fence a little bit so that we are able to mow a section in there, but I would I think it would be odd to create two separate fenced areas with a mow strip between them.
And if we were going to create, sorry.
Well,
sorry, or are you suggesting a mow strip within the fenced-in area that's proposed?
Well, you're talking about this other mitigation area, and I actually don't know where it is because that wasn't part of this project, so we don't. So it's hard for me to think about that in context of this project. But the objective here is sort of prevent from happening what apparently happened to the other mitigation area, and which happens to a lot of mitigation areas over relatively short amounts of time, is that if they're adjacent to invasives, the mitigation area gets taken over, and it's as if it never happened. In the meantime, the applicant has their hardscape and life goes on. So that's what we're trying. That's what I'm trying to do, is to make it so that that mitigation area has a fighting chance to survive past the 3 years that you are on contract to take care of it.
David Clark here.
Sorry.
The existing post and rail fence was put there under the previous order to delineate the mitigation area. So if we're going to create a mow strip, I would suggest we put it on the east side of that fence where the invasives are. So we're mowing invasives instead of reducing the amount of mitigation planting that Nick is proposing. And we can certainly take the sections of fence out in between those two areas, because really all it's doing now is delineating two mitigation areas. But put a mow strip.
We show that section of fence being removed on our plan.
Oh, okay. So, but I think it makes more sense to mow the invasives and then create a mow strip within what Nick's proposing.
Oh, totally agree. That's what I would like to see as well.
Okay.
And Bob, just one addition to that comment is, the maintenance is really what's going to keep the invasives out of the new mitigation area. Even if we mow them, they will still exist underground wanting to resprout. So through the treatment of them encroaching into that area, that's really how we'll keep them out.
For the immediate future, but not long term.
And ideally, once these projects get certificates of compliance, request on to be able to maintain it invasive free, more or less in perpetuity.
Yeah, that's the hope and the dream, but we don't see much evidence. We don't see much evidence of it when we go back to look at projects 6 years later. Janet, what do you?
So am I correct in thinking that what we're talking about is, as the previous mitigation area is associated with one of the two still open orders of condition? It's the area just to the, I guess it's the north of the split rail fence, is that right? And that's now been taken over by invasives? Yeah, that picture, Nikki, that one, that photo shows it pretty, I mean, that's what I'm looking at is the photo.
The previous one that I was more aware of, David Clark actually let me know that there was a second one still open, but the invasive removal that I knew of, it's SE 2890, so it's fairly old, but it was Blue Flax doing work down here on the coastal bank restoration. So it didn't have anything to do with this
area there.
This
Can you
area.
show that photo again, one that you just had up?
Sure.
And I may have misspoke before. I think it was definitely a mitigation area, as it looks like some native plants were planted in that area, but I don't fully know, and I rely on David knowing the history of the property. I don't fully know whether it was a quote unquote restoration area as much as it was an area for mitigation plantings.
My recollection, I think it was 12 years ago now, but it was a mitigation / restoration area. I don't remember if who the professional was that developed the plan for that mitigation area. It might have been us. It's so long ago. I got to take a look at the file. But yeah, it's probably 12 years old at this point. And it was, again, it was for the reconstruction of the dwelling, and that project has a certificate of compliance. So there was a sign off on that restoration mitigation area. But I can get the details of what that was supposed to be, and get that to Nikki. Save her some time of looking it up.
Was that for the demo rebuild?
Yes.
Yes, that does have a COC. That was 2191. So so we caught 2191 and 2890, but you said there was the one more open one, which somehow we missed when we were researching, but we'll look into that.
Bob.
Yeah, so right now we're considering a mow strip along the east side where that fence is currently. But how about the south end, right next to that little bank between the two properties? Will there be a mow strip there too?
So it appeared, at least on the plan and the way that things were located in the field, that there will still be a small sliver of lawn that's just off property between the invasives and this mitigation area that goes up to the property line.
Okay.
So yes, there would be, so long as it was maintained, there would be a small strip of grass.
Yeah, so in other words, grass will be surrounding that mitigation area then?
On three sides.
Okay.
The east side will be abutted by the naturalized area behind the fence right now.
Okay. That's all I had, thank you.
Thanks, Bob. I don't know where we are. You know, it's kind of, I mean, I think, Nick, you sort of let the cat out of the bag whenever you said, well, unless it's maintained over time, it's just going to get invaded, even if you do have a mow strip. Did I understand you correctly?
Yeah, I mean, all you're doing when you mow is getting rid of the above ground portion of the plant. So in theory, if you did mow that strip, I would still expect the poplars to go under the mow area into the mitigation area, and that's when it would be addressed through maintenance. And that's what's really going to eradicate whichever species it is that we don't want in that area, is the treatment of it, versus just an annual or biannual mowing. That was the point that I was trying to explain before, is it's really the treatment that eradicates it, not necessarily the mowing. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there.
So most strips without treatment are not useful.
It depends on which species you're talking about. If you're talking about, something like shrub honeysuckle that doesn't spread through rhizomes or runners, then yes, that would be effective. If you're talking about something like white poplar, which is clonal, then it will be less effective.
Yeah, well, it leaves us in sort of the same. It leaves us. I don't want to go on too much longer about this, but the same sort of fatal flaw with this whole paradigm, which is that we get asked for hardscape, we grant it in return for mitigation. We come back later and mitigation has been subsumed by invasive plants and looks no different than it did before. I'm just starting to get a little disheartened by approving things like that, but I'm not sure what is to be done about it. Anyway.
David Clark here. So I did pull up the plan for the demo rebuild. So it was originally filed in November of 2005. And that was before the commission revised the regulations to create the no disturb zone and all the mitigation requirements. But nonetheless, mitigation was provided, and it was simply a list of 65 plants that was proposed in that area by Clark Engineering. So there was no restoration plan prepared by a restoration specialist. I don't even know if Wilkinson was in business in 2005. So this was probably around the era where that specialty professional service was coming about. So I'm sure the order of conditions didn't contain the special provisions that you have now for care of these areas once they're replanted.
Yep, could be. Yeah, a lot of the NOIs from back then are pretty bleak, sparse. I agree.
Yeah.
So anybody else have any questions? I guess I'm just going to pose.
No, I have a comment.
All right, let's have it.
Suggestion.
All right.
Directed at your bemoaning this bad bargain that we continue to fall to, which is exchanging permanent hardscape for impermanent vegetation that does not survive. And I don't see why we could not require ongoing invasive management and removal of mitigation areas a continuing condition in orders where there is mitigation and restoration, so that at the end of 3 years, people can't just walk away from it and let invasives come back in. We have all kinds of conditions that we put in as continuing conditions. Those go on forever. And if the mitigation is to be permanent and in exchange for permanent hardscape, it seems to me that that's the right bargain to be making.
Yeah, we can 100% make that a condition. I don't see any problem with that. It's just the monitoring of it. Am I going to go out and monitor every single property that has that condition on an annual basis? No.
It's incumbent on the homeowner to monitor it. And if information comes to you that there's some problem in some area, you can go and, and take a look at it and then require what has not been done to be done. I don't think it should not fall to the town to do that, but it should at least be out there as something that can trigger an obligation to do something about it.
Right, and that's part of the reason that I had Crystal start when she does permit intake, is to mark down all of the orders of conditions, so I'm aware of what was there in the past, and I can go back and as best as I can, try and make sure that those were complied with before we issue any new ones. So, so we are trying to work in that direction, but yes, it can 100% be an ongoing condition. It would likely only get caught when they apply for something
Yeah.
in the
well,
future, a few years later, but
One step at a time, as
It's a
we,
step-
Right.
it's a
continue-
step
as
in the
our
right
knowledge
direction.
continues to advance, our practices should be advancing as well.
yes.
Is that in perpetuity if it's an ongoing condition, Janet? Yep,
Yes.
okay, all right. Transfers to the owner.
Yes, it's recorded on the deed.
Pretty much all of our permits stay with the property, not the homeowner.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. You're going to make it so in the template? Very good. I'm sure Nick will like this too.
Yeah.
Yes, you should.
Well, if in the town of Barnstable, we've worked on several projects that just have in the original orders of conditions that the areas will be simply just maintained invasive free. So, it doesn't make any mention about maintaining the plantings or anything like that, but it does give you the ability in perpetuity to make sure that the invasives don't encroach on the area, which I thought is good, especially for projects that have things like Phragmites and knotweed and even poplar, things that spread clonally.
All right, very good. I'll mark this day in my calendar. So what changes do we have, if any, are we asking for? There's been discussions about most strips, but it doesn't sound like Nick thinks that they're useful. If Nick, your plan show it allows for a narrow strip which could be mowed, and it's not obvious on your plan, so could we ask you to make it shown?
Yeah, we can certainly either just put a note on it that there'll be, a 2 or 3 foot wide mow strip between the previous mitigation and new mitigation area. Yes.
At least to protect them from each other.
Yep.
And it did occur to me that the boat, being where it is, actually sort of serves as a mow strip from anything coming from the adjacent property. So that's how I finally talked myself into thinking, well, I'll just leave it there.
A boat strip.
The boat strip, exactly. Okay. Anything else that we asked for that anyone can remember, or anything?
Try to transplant some of those cedar trees.
Oh yes, try to transplant the cedars if possible.
And the driveway, the pitch in the driveway.
Dave, I'm looking at the old site plan that does have that original mitigation, and it looks like the septic. It looks like those cedars could be located either very close to the septic tank or even over maybe not the D box. There's the D box. It looks like there could be something underground there, maybe a dry well.
There are dry wells over there, and there are also the septic tank and the leach field are over there.
So in that instance, I would rather replace than reuse, just so that we don't damage any of the septic or the drainage.
Replace where?
That's a good question.
In the
Likely
mitigation
within the
area, right?
mitigation area.
Which you've already argued against for neighbors' view purposes.
Well, how about if we replace some of those poplars with as mitigation? Since the commission is asking for us to take a look at managing that area, I imagine that would include taking out some of those invasives, and maybe that's an opportunity to plant something more substantial where the neighbor's view is already impacted by those trees. New trees in those areas might not be an issue.
Sounds like a good idea. So that leaves us with, Jimmy, do we have enough changes that we can or can't go to in order of conditions?
I think my changes are relatively simple, just to show some grading on that driveway kicker.
And Nick,
And then we can add a plan to the note about the mow strip and which side of the mitigation area it's on. And then if you are requiring that the cedars to be replaced, we can also just add a note that describes the location and where they'd be planted and what would be removed in order to plant them.
sounds good to me.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think most of our issues can be addressed with the order of conditions as far as making sure the area doesn't get overgrown by invasives and things like that.
All right. So Bob,
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we continue 86 Capri Lane to the work session with the required changes on April 6th, 2022 for an order of conditions.
Latin second.
roll call vote. Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
I vote aye, and thank you all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The next notice of intent is 37 Clamshell Drive, O Real Estate Trust, map 16A, parcel H76, SE. That one did not have an SE number that I've received, and I believe I checked about 12:30. So we will have to continue that for the SE number purpose, but it's for demolition of an existing dwelling and construction of the new dwelling. There were two abutter letters, I believe from the same property. I think it was 191 Marsh something or another. Hang on just one second. I just want to get those read real quick before we go into the whole presentation. Their concerns, I'm not sure if they're on the call or not, but their concerns were that the dwelling itself was moving closer to the resource area. It was Susan McConnell and the other one I sent to you. Sorry, my email is being weird. All right, yeah, they were from 191 Morris Island Road. So like I said, both of them were just concerned about the movement of the house closer to the resource area. And then that some of the parking seemed excessive because they already had plenty. And so if they want to speak, well, I mentioned to Susan that she can raise her hand if she had any questions during the presentation. But with that, Dave, you can start your presentation.
For the record, David Clark on behalf of Allison O, who was the applicant. This is a demo rebuild of an existing cottage in the floodplain. The other resource area is a man-made ditch that shows up as a river on the USGS map. So the Rivers Act applies to this, where there is a 200-foot buffer from the bank of the ditch, and we show those two lines on the plan. The house itself is about the same size as what's there now. Actually, I think it's just a tiny bit smaller, if I'm not mistaken. But we are moving it away from Clamshell Drive, and that is because lifting it so high out of the floodplain affords the owner the opportunity to have parking underneath the dwelling. So we're creating a garage space on the north side of the dwelling. And that's the reason for the second driveway and parking area. One of the advantages of lifting the house is that all the outdoor space gets lifted with it. So we're getting rid of patios and all the ground level outdoor space and moving that up with the dwelling. So as far as what's occupied on the ground, there's actually a reduction, a slight reduction on this property. The homeowner is a little handcuffed in that the neighbor to the south has a driveway that cuts across the corner of their property. So that area is unavailable for additional parking. But we felt that one of her goals was to have a garage, and after we analyzed the flood issues, we basically told her you're going to get a garage anyways. But she was thinking of a detached garage on the south side of the property at one time. But now, because we're elevating it, we were able to get it underneath. So that's the primary reason for the second driveway. There's an existing Title V system that is a mounded system, so to speak, and it's it's enclosed in a concrete retaining wall. And that limits us as to where a house can go, or rebuild of the house can go on this property without digging that system up and installing a whole new one. That system was designed under the old code, and it would be significantly larger and higher if it was rebuilt under the existing code. This project also has to go to Zoning Board of Appeals, obviously, and it also has to go to the Planning Board because of the changes to the driveway. Under the Rivers Act, a property that predates 1996 has some grandfathering, and I say some in that the regulations say the commission may issue an order of conditions for up to 5,000 square feet or 10% of the riverfront area, whichever is greater. So we're not far less, but we're less than the 5,000 square feet. And like I said earlier, that what's occupied on the ground is actually less under this proposal. And as far as the dwelling getting closer to the resource area, being the ditch, yes, it's 2.5 feet closer. But we didn't feel that was a substantial enough further encroachment to make a measurable difference to the riverfront area. The landscape designer is I believe on the call and can present the landscape plan, but I think it's pretty straightforward. There's some lawn area on the property that we're going to keep, and then we're concentrating the mitigation plantings down on the southeast corner of the property. Southwest corner of the property, whereas it adjacent to what I remember as being Conservation Foundation land. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thanks, David. And Nikki, you said there was a second letter. I think we saw via email one letter, but I think there was another one. I didn't.
Yep, I got one last night. It was from the same address. I don't know if they're spouses or siblings or what, but they're the same address, and they basically had the same concerns, that it was just moving closer. And then the second one, the one that I did not send yet because I got it last night after work hours, was she had the concern of the house moving, but also that it seemed that they were just trying to move it to add parking, I believe. And so she didn't feel that was a substantial reason to be able to move a house closer to the resource area. But I can forward that as well to everyone if you would like.
Yeah, I think we should see it. So David, did I understand you then to say that the motivation for moving the house 2.5 feet closer to the resource area has to do with enabling the parking underneath the raised house?
It allows for a parking space outside the garage. So we're going to have because we have the ability to park a car underneath the structure, there's enough headroom because it's going up so high. We have to provide access to that area. So we decided to move it a little further away from the street so that if a car is parked in front of the garage door, it is substantially off of Clamshell Drive. Some of the car will be hanging over the property line into Clamshell Drive, which is similar to the existing conditions where the parking is now. You can't get 2 cars off the roadway entirely on this property. So we just felt it was just a little bit safer, just without impacting the resource area, just to slide the house over just a little bit.
All right, we'll open it up to, do you have anybody else to speak or be ready for questions? Sounds like that's it. All right, open it up to questions, commission. Bob.
David, the new deck will be going over the existing septic system. Is that a good thing to do in case the septic system had to be replaced?
The only thing the code says is that no structures can be placed over the septic system that interferes with the operation and maintenance. So I don't feel the sonotube posts would interfere with the operation and the maintenance of the septic system. If the system requires replacement, then that whole about 2/3 of the site are going to be impacted by a new septic system. So I think they can work around those posts if that ever happens.
Okay. And I just have a question on the landscaping, if I could. You have someone?
Yeah, I'm just seeing if I know.
Yep, Tyler Gaudreau,
Yep.
Environmental Landscape Solutions.
Hi. On the southeast corner of the septic, suppose that's a leaching field encased with the concrete. On the southeast corner, there's a planting of rugosa rose up against the concrete. Existing. Will that be removed before the mitigation area gets planted?
Yeah, yes, the rugosa rose would be removed.
And all of it, because it kind of swings around the corner. So I'm just thinking if it's not entirely removed, it's going to find its way into that mitigation planting.
Yep, it'll all be hand dug and removed, but the existing grade will remain around the back portion of the wall.
Okay. I think that's all I had for now. Thank you.
Bob. I don't see any other hands at the moment, so I'll go back to David. I'm a little confused, I guess. And the project says you're adding a net of 575 to the NDZ, even though later you say there is no NDZ, but we'll leave that aside. Or there isn't, because there isn't I guess an NDZ, but where does the increase come from if you are, as you say, if it's a house the same footprint and you're actually also reducing existing hardscape, where does the 575 gain come from?
The deck.
It's that you're counting the deck. Okay.
Yes, yeah, we're projecting the deck as if it was ground cover,
I see.
even though it's going to be 7.5, 8 feet above grade.
Okay. Yeah, all right, and that, now I get it. I just sort of thought you would probably not treat that as ground, as cover, but that's good. All right. And I noticed that the mitigation is shrubs. I always ask this question, could there a tree or two be put there?
There is an existing juniper that'll remain. But I think the idea was to try to limit the height, as some of the other homeowners were a little concerned about views.
Right. To say it's a perennial issue. Everybody's got views through the adjacent property. Okay. All right. I think that's. I don't have any more. Oh, Janet.
Thanks, Bob. David, can you help me better understand? There's a reference in here to a small roofed overhang over the main entrance. But the main entrance, is it from the deck level, or is the main entrance going to be at the current elevation at the ground level? Where is that entrance?
It will be elevated. So basically, it's just a shelter roof over the deck, over the front door.
Okay. And then where are the stairs that access to get up to that?
They're tough to see, but if you follow from the large parking area, if you follow the footpath, the stone steppers,
Yep.
then they'll take a left, and that'll bring you to the bottom of the stairs, which are, you see, it's tough to describe.
Do they run parallel?
North, they run north and, well, from the northwest up to the southeast. So they're basically parallel with the long side of the house.
On both sides of the front entrance?
Just one side.
Just the one side?
Yeah.
So to get there there'll be interior stairs to access the house from the garage?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if there's an interior stairway. I don't have the building plans handy. But I think the general contractor is also.
Dave, this is Donnie Dunham.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Hi. Hello.
Hi, Janet. Donnie Dunham. So within the garage space, the unfinished space, there will be a set of stairs to get inside the house as well from inside the garage. And Dave described the front stairs correct as well.
Okay. But what else is going to be existing at that ground level, at that floodplain level, besides is the garage on a slab?
Correct. The whole basement will be on a slab. And the only thing in the basement, if you will be an unfinished set of stairs.
Okay, so no interior walls, no.
Correct.
Okay. We come across this question in terms of storage of vehicles in these garages during the off season, which some people like to do. But when it's in a flood zone, it creates a possibility of being dislodged.
Correct. So for this client, this will be a second home. So there isn't the expectation of storing the vehicle there year round. Not to say that couldn't happen in the future, but presumably if the vehicle was there, she would be there.
Okay. Yeah, it's the winter season that is the issue.
Understood.
Yep. That's it. That's all I had. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, since you brought it up, Janet, I'll ask, are there flood vents in this garage space?
Yes, there are flood vents, correct.
Okay. We We'll of course have an order conditions that talk about no storage of hazardous materials in this space.
Mhm. Yep.
Okay. Anybody else? Are there any comments, questions from abutters or those who submitted the letters? Are they on the line? Do they wish to add on to the letters? Okay. So the issue then that was raised by the letters is whether or not, in our view, is that 2.5 feet movement warranted 2.5 feet closer to the resource area, which is and we now have heard the reason why. I'm of the personal opinion that's not much of a movement. And so it's not
I also
something.
just want to point out it's not the closest disturbance that already exists. They have existing terrace and retaining walls that are to be removed that are closer to the resource area than what is going to end up existing.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we have not, let's see, what have we asked for? If anything. Nothing, it looks like. If somebody else can remember anything we've asked for, I don't think we have.
I have a quick question, Bob.
Okay.
Currently, there's a rinse station at the house, and I don't see anything on the plans. Is there any plan to replace that?
I don't know the answer to that. David
Donnie
Clark
again.
speaking.
Donnie Dunham again. There's no plan to replace that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Elise.
I have a question, and it may be an uninformed question. What is the clothes rack that's shown? Is that just something to, is that a clothesline, or and what is it going to be made of?
It's an existing clothesline that'll be removed. It's on the abutting property. It's a remnant from when this was all part of Horns Cottages back in the 50s and 60s. It's been there a long time. It's on the wrong property, so it will be removed.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Well, I was going to say that's too bad. The clotheslines are great.
It's historic.
But whatever. If it's on the other property, then what are you going to do?
Should that be noted on the plan that it's being removed?
We can add that to the plan, that note, yeah.
Okay.
Anything else? That sounds like okay. All right. Anybody else? If nothing else, then I think we are ready.
Make a motion to continue 37 Clamshell Drive to the work session on April 6th, 2022, for an order of condition.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Thank you,
gentlemen. Thank you.
All right, our next notice of intent is 70 Queen Anne Road. Robert Duncanson, Town of Chatham Natural Resources, map 13E, parcel 15-14. This one also did not have an SE number. And Bob, I did notice when I was looking this afternoon that it doesn't even show up in the SE database, because usually as soon as they get filed, even if they don't have an SE number, you can find the address, but this one wasn't there. So I don't know if there was some sort of filing error with the state or not. So we'll just have to figure that out. But
Okay, I will follow up with the engineers and make sure that the filing was taken care of with the state. So thank you. I wasn't aware of that because, anyway. All right. Good afternoon, members of the commission. Robert Duncanson, Director of Health and Natural Resources for the town of Chatham. As you may or may not be aware, if you go to the Chatham Village Market, CVS on regular occasion, we have a wastewater pump station located right in the northeast corner of the parking lot, fronting on Queen Anne Road. You may or may not be aware of it. There's not much there. It's a couple of above ground green structures with a little bit of landscaping around it on an island of about, 25 by 30 feet. We are planning to upgrade that pump station. Yeah, if you look at the plan, Nikki, I don't know if you can scroll that up towards the top a little bit. Yeah, that kind of semicircular area right in the middle there, with the 3 hash parking spaces next to it. That is the existing pump station. And so we have been working to upgrade that pump station. It was originally built in 1969, 1970. It needs to be upgraded to today's day and age, as well as its capacity needs to be slightly expanded in order to handle increased flows as we sewer increased areas of town. I'm sure you're all familiar with our comprehensive wastewater management plan that was completed back in 2009. We've started implementation in 2010, and there has pretty much been continuous ongoing wastewater construction for the last 12 years. We've built a new wastewater treatment plant down next to the transfer station where the old plant used to be. And we've been working on extending the sewers throughout town in accordance with the CWMP. So one of the things we've been looking at is this pump station. And we originally were planning to rebuild the pump station at the same location as the existing one in the corner of the CVS CVM parking lot. However, we ran into 2 issues, one of which was in order to keep the existing pump station in operation, because obviously we can't tell people you can't use your toilets while we build a new station. We needed to try to keep the existing pump station in operation. In order to do that and build the new pump station, say, immediately adjacent to it, we had discussions with the owners of the CVS CVM property about getting an easement, a larger easement than we currently have, to accommodate the new pump station. And that would have required 2 or 3 of those parking spaces that are immediately adjacent to the pump station. We had several discussions with the owners, and unfortunately, because of agreements they have with Chatham Village Market and CVS, and the fact that they are currently right at their required number of parking spaces under planning board regulations, they were unable to grant us an easement to use any of those additional parking spaces and basically take them out of circulation. So, meeting with the engineers, we were kind of scratching our heads and looking around, and we all kind of looked across the street, and there's a parcel right there, or not a parcel, it's part of the Queen Anne Inn property that is immediately across the street, that for the most part, right off the road is relatively level. There's nothing else built there. It is close to the wetland area, which is immediately on the property. So I had discussions with the owners of the Queen Anne Inn, and they indicated a willingness to grant the town an easement to locate the pump station on that property. And so we are moving ahead with that. And as you can see, we have a plan here which basically allows us to keep the existing pump station in operation while we build the new one. And then we would basically connect the existing wet well, which is the underground cylinder into which the wastewater flows by gravity. We would keep that existing cylinder there, run a new pipe across the street into a new wet well on the 70 Queen Anne Inn property. and install our new pump station. To give you an idea of what this looks like, the wet well is a 12-foot diameter concrete structure, which is basically underground. On top of that, there will be a 6 by 6 by 7.5 foot fiberglass, for want of a better term, we call it a doghouse. And that will house the pumps. There will be an emergency generator, which if you look at the plan, that is the kind of rectangular portion, right, that Nikki is currently highlighting with her cursor there. And then on the north, so going straight up a little bit and over towards the right, there'll be a couple of electrical and control panels. In addition to that, that kind of cross-hatched area that goes out to Oyster Pond Furlong, that will be a parking area or an access road, if you will. That'll be made out of porous pavers so that we're not paving anything to generate any more stormwater. There will be a retaining wall, which is that kind of dark, solid L-shaped line right around the backside of this. And that is because the grade does start to drop off a little bit. And obviously we want a flat, level surface upon which to build. We will put a guardrail around on the Queen Anne Road side of it, on the inside of the sidewalk, if you're familiar with that area. I'm sure you've all driven by this spot many times. But there's a sidewalk along Queen Anne Road there. We will put a guardrail along that side as well, just to keep people out of the site, and also, God forbid, you know, if there was ever an accident, we would prefer that the pump structures not be hit by a car or a truck. There will be no building. We had initially, you know, basically when we build these pump stations, we have two options. We can locate everything inside a building, or in this case, we can put everything outside without a building. And those are conversations that we generally have when we have to get an easement from a private property owner. You know, do they prefer a building or not? In this case, a building was not preferred, so we have not shown one. Everything will be outside. And then we will landscape around it pretty heavily, so that basically as you're driving by on Queen Anne Road, you should not see much, if anything, of the station once it's constructed. And then we're also doing some landscaping on basically the south side, which is kind of the Oyster Pond side, just to provide and soften that retaining wall that needs to be there as well. Obviously, we've picked all low maintenance native vegetation, as we always do, for these pump stations, to try to make it blend in as much as possible, you know, so that when people go by, you know, they don't really know what's there. There will be a gate across the access road. It will not be like a fence or anything like that. It'll simply be an access gate to keep people from, you know, using our area as a parking space when the parking lot at Chatham Village Market CVS is full in the middle of summer, kind of thing. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. And we also have two of the engineers from GHD who we work with on designing these stations. We have Ben Watkins and Lily Pettit available as well, if you have any technical questions. We are working with the property owner to finalize the easement upon which the station will be located. There is the property immediately down the road on Oyster Pond Furlong is property of the Chatham Conservation Foundation. There's a vacant lot immediately adjacent to this one, which they own. They have an easement over this portion of the 70 Queen Anne Inn property, which basically says, you know, you can't put up any buildings or anything like that on this section of the property. I have had conversations with the folks at the Chatham Conservation Foundation, and am currently working with town council to revise that easement document or create a new one, which will meet the goals of the foundation as well as the town's goals of getting this pump station built. You know, that was a little complication wrinkle here, but everybody's willing to work together to get something in place that allows this project to move forward. So with that, I will stop talking and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Duncanson. Yeah, I'll just open it straight up. Questions from commissioners? Well, there you go, Bob.
I'll go first, Bob.
All right.
Okay, Dr. Duncanson, I got a few questions here. The current pump station across the street, what will happen to that site?
Our intent right now is basically we would remove all the, most of the above ground structures. There is an emergency generator. There's some control panels and things like that. They would all be removed. As I said, we will leave the wet well in place and just put new piping into it. And other than that, the landscaping and all will pretty much remain as it is. One of the other things we took into account, as you're familiar with the site, there is a very large tree there, which over the years has grown substantially. And in order to build the new station there, we would have had to take that tree down, which is something I don't think anybody was thrilled about. So by not building the pump station there and moving it across the street, we can actually retain that tree and, have minimal roof disturbance. So we're not anticipating any impact on that or any of the other plantings around there.
Okay, so will that area be maintained long-term?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, there isn't much there now except for some shrubbery and then some, bark mulch and all. It's not an area that's got grass. I mean, it's, if you've been by, it's a postage stamp size spot. So we'll just, we'll maintain the vegetation and, keep the bark mulch there to kind of keep it looking the way it looks today.
Yeah, and you really can't plant that too heavily because it's still in operation, correct?
That as well as we need to maintain the sight lines coming out of the Chatham Village Market parking lot.
Okay.
So that's why all the vegetation that's there now is relatively low, and also there's no impacts to the sight line because, having that driveway so close to the intersection with Oyster Pond Furlong and Queen Anne, that's a safety issue. So we want to maintain that going forward.
Okay, and who would maintain it? The DPW?
Yes, it would be maintained by the sewer division. They maintain all our pump station sites.
Okay. Okay. On the corner of the new site, there's a Sycamore tree or London plane tree, a beautiful tree, beautiful specimen. And that's slated to be removed, correct?
That will have to be removed, yes, because even if we left it in excavating to get the piping and all in, and there's going to be damage to the roots, so the tree in all likelihood will not survive anyway. But it is right in the middle of the site, if you will.
Okay, that's too bad, but I understand. And long term, you say the site will be maintained by the sewer division of the DPW.
Yep.
And we just like to make sure invasives don't encroach and so forth. And so that would be maintained long term, correct?
Yeah, the town is basically getting two easements from the property owner. One is a permanent easement, which is basically the area within the retaining wall. And then we're also getting a temporary construction easement, which is basically another 10 feet out to allow the construction and then the subsequent plantings. So once that area, is restored, it will just be allowed to pretty much naturalize as it's been, there for years. Obviously, we will keep invasives out because we don't want them any more than anybody else does. So.
And just one last question. The town has the available resources to maintain all these new pump sites then, huh?
Yes. And, over time, as the comprehensive wastewater management plan goes further along, there will be more staffing brought on as the number of pump stations increase and the collection system expands. So yeah, that was all documented in the comprehensive wastewater management plan. staffing increases in future years as the system gets bigger and bigger. Yeah.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Janet.
Thanks, Bob. How lower? Has the wet well already been installed?
No, nothing's been installed yet.
What there was a drilling company there, and there's a hole in a concrete pad on the site. So trying to figure out what that is. What do you?
We did have a test boring done at the site, obviously, to make sure that soil conditions were satisfactory, as well as determine what groundwater level was.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not aware that there's a concrete pad. There is a concrete head wall on the site because there are some drain lines that come from the intersection through an easement the town's had since the late 70s for stormwater. So there is a concrete head wall there. And I think that's shown on the plan.
How
that
high
Nick just
is that elevated? What I was looking at was a concrete pad slab set into about a foot below the ground, about a foot below ground elevation, where the hole is.
Yeah, the concrete head wall there is pretty much at grade.
Okay.
If you look at the plan and you see the dark outline of the retaining wall, and then there's the two larger trees with the smaller shrub kind of in the middle, and then right next to that, there's a rectangle, if you will. That is where the concrete head wall is. And then from there, you can see two lines that go back to the drainage system that's in the roadway. And that's part of the drainage system. It also drains all the way down Oyster Pond Lane, goes into our new, although it's 5 or 6 years old now, our stormwater detention basin on Oyster Pond Furlong, and then ultimately out into Oyster Pond. And basically the pipes in the head wall here are an overflow that should that system, become full, it can then discharge through this head wall. And like I say, the town has had an easement for that. I think the easement was dated like 1978 or something like that. And that head wall has not been maintained very well because it gets very little flow. And that's why it looked like it had just been there's some disturbed earth around it when they relocated it as part of the survey work for this project.
Okay. And so, forgive, this question comes from my lack of knowledge about wastewater treatment engineering. So when you say if the system becomes full, my first question is there any possibility that stormwater can enter and infiltrate this system?
No, we do not. We have what's known as a closed system in Chatham. We don't have what you typically hear about from, say, Boston or other big cities, which is what's known as a CSO or combined sewer, in that case, overflow. Our systems are totally separate. So the stormwater system is separate from the sewer system.
Okay, that's reassuring.
Yeah.
What other conditions or maintenance problems could lead to an overflow at this location? Because I'm concerned about how the property, the slope goes straight down into that wetland.
You should never say only, because then, Mother Nature or technology proves us wrong. The wet well, which is that big concrete cylinder that's below ground into which the wastewater flows, and into which the pumps go. That wet well is designed to fill up to a certain level, and then there's a series of sensors which turn the pumps on to pump it out and send it down the road. In this case, it would be pumped up Queen Anne Road and then flow by gravity to the large pump station that we have in the back parking lot behind the Orpheum Theater. If you've been down there, we have that big wastewater pump station there. So this one would pump to that one.
God. Okay,
If the initial levels failed for some reason and did not turn the pumps on, there are another series of level indicators at a higher level that would turn on as a backup. In addition, the entire process and all the equipment is alarmed. So high level alarms would go off and things like that. And it used to be, in the old days, that would cause an auto dialer to dial a phone number. Now it's all done by radio and everybody has it on their cell phones. So when the alarms go off, people know about it instantaneously. And even when the alarms go off, there is still capacity in that well. So it's not like the alarms go off and then immediately sewage is flowing out, onto the ground kind of thing. They go off at a lower level, in which case, if it was something that could not be fixed right then and there, we would have the ability to bring in pumper trucks, just like pumping out your septic tank at home. We would bring in pumper trucks to pump the wet well down. And the other thing, the most frequent problem we have here in Chatham and on the Cape is power outages. That's why these stations are all equipped with emergency generators. So if we lose commercial power, the generators automatically come on and keep the pump station operational. Because obviously, managing our wastewater is critical for everybody, not only for the environment, but also for all the residents and visitors here. So yeah, we've got all the bells and whistles and suspenders, if you will, in these systems to make sure. And, like everything else, technology is much better than it was when the station was originally constructed in the 70s. But, I'll say it, although I always hesitate to say it. In all the years that I've been here in Chatham, we have had 2 minor wastewater overflows, and they have been minor on the orders of, tens of gallons. And both of those occurred on Route 28, further west of here, in the force mains. And so there was no pollution incidents or anything like that. And knock on wood, that continues.
thank you. Thank you for all that. That's all very reassuring because it's in a very vulnerable location. So, okay, thank you.
I see no other hands. I do have a question, follow-up question that Bob had about the sycamore, the very large, very beautiful specimen sycamore. So Dr. Bob, is there no way to save it by relocating any portion of this pump house?
I don't think so, just because a tree that big is going to have an extensive root system. And, to get piping and all in there, we would have to be digging, and we would definitely disturb some portion of the root system. And that's why, I would be very concerned that then we have we've either compromised the stability of the tree, in which case, our windstorms around here are notorious, or we just do so much, impact to the root system that, the tree's going to die anyway. I will certainly ask our landscape folks that we have working with us as part of these projects to take another look at it. But, we've been working on this design now for 5 or 6 months. And unfortunately, that tree where it's located, it's a problem area right on the corner. So, but we will certainly take another look at it.
Yeah, I think I expect there'll be a few people picketing if they see that tree come down. So I see that you're taking out, I read somewhere that you're taking out more trees. You're taking out 7 poplars, that's what my notes say. So 8 total trees coming out, planting 6. And so the math didn't really add up very well to me because that sycamore counts for more than 1 replacement tree. We've had other applications where we've gone over this type of ground where you have a specimen tree And the proposal is to replace it with a sapling. And what we've arrived at is some sort of agreement to sort of take DBHs into account. You're taking out that magnificent tree. Can we add more than just one sapling to replace it? So I'll throw that on the table for you to think about as well. It looks like you still have room. It would appear to me that you have room to add some more trees on the other side of the pump station to compensate for the loss of that specimen.
Yeah, we will certainly take a look at that for you. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. The trees, thank you. Anyone else? See, Bob, is that a new hand, old hand?
It's a new hand.
New hand.
Just a very quick question. Just wondering if those generators are tested periodically.
Yeah, every emergency generator we have is on a schedule. They basically come on once a week and run for a half an hour. That's standard. That tests all the alarm system. It runs the generator. Yeah, so they're on a schedule generally once a week.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? So we will, sounds like we will see possibly a revised mitigation plan. Is it fair to say?
Yeah, we will certainly take a look at it, get with the landscape folks and supplement the plantings. Yes.
Okay.
Hey, Bob,
question.
this is Ben Watkins with GHD. So the rendering that Bob had showed, that was for our NOI submission earlier this month. And since then, we've had internal discussions with the town on updating that drawing. And actually, we do have an additional drawing, a more updated drawing to look at that does have additional trees, if you guys would like to take a look at that.
We would like to take a look at it. I don't know about it right now. What's your time frame for the project? Are you do we have time to continue this and look at it in more detail, or not?
Yeah, I would think so. We're still waiting. We're still working through the easement issues. We're scheduled with the Zoning Board of Appeals for May 6th. And we're currently scheduled with the Planning Board. I don't have the exact date here, but, so we still have, those things to go for the next month. So we could certainly continue it to your next meeting to give you guys time to review the updated landscape plan.
Yep, sounds good to me.
Okay.
All right.
I believe that is April 13th.
Okay, Bob.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we continue 70 Queen Anne Road to April 13th, 2022.
April 13th.
April 13th.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
I vote aye. Thank you all. And I move that we take a 7-minute break.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So Chen Lei Ting, I don't know if you heard me.
One.
Okay,
All
Nikki,
right, so we ready to go for the next one?
I think we are.
All right, so this is where the agenda changes slightly. So we're gonna do 19 Stoughton Lane before the 4 Homestead and Tilippi runs. So that's 19 Stoughton Lane, Joyce Jenkins, map 6C, parcel 55, J15, SE 103549, raise and rebuild existing single-family dwelling with deck. And Lynn Hamlin is here for this one, and I'm going to share the plan. Just wanted to let you know that there was a small, very minor change to the plan. So what you're seeing is not going to be the exact one that you have, but again, it's a very minor change. And with that, Lynn can begin.
Good afternoon. Appreciate you taking us ahead of the long series of hearings. Thank you. I'm going to keep it short. I try to do a comprehensive written application, and if I miss something, you can just ask me. This is simply for the raise and rebuild of an existing single-family dwelling. The only resource area in which construction will occur is land subject to coastal storm flowage, which goes up to elevation 11. There's no other wetland resource area within 100 feet of the project area. This house will be raised with a Z and put back in its exact same footprint, mostly to stay out of your crosshairs. So there'd be no change in the footprint on the site, no change in grading. It's a flat site, so there's no need to do much regrading. There's some regrading because the house foundation will be elevated to conform to construction in the flood zone under the Mass Building Code. So the house will go in the same footprint, the deck will go in the same footprint. The minor note that Nikki was referring to in the revised plan comes from the retaining wall that you can see around the deck. That was initially to support a garage that was never built, so they put the deck over it. So when they do the rebuild, that retaining wall will not go back. It'll just be a deck on a post-supported deck. The driveway now is dirt, so people mostly park within its footprint, but it'll be better defined with gravel, just to make it more obvious where one should park. We do have a file number. I don't know if Nikki got that. It showed up late this morning. If you don't have it, I can give that to you. The applicant wanted me to share with you that in 1991, she had donated 5 lots to the Chatham Conservation Foundation. You have a long hearing ahead of you, I think, still some more. So I'm going to stop and see if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Anyone with questions, comments, concerns? Janet? You're muted, Janet. You're muted.
Now, I see that now. It's because I was eating.
Okay.
I'm having a problem understanding the elevation changes. So the current elevation, at least in the front, seems to range from 8, 9, 10. The front door is at, I think, what did you say, 9.7? To get it to 12, is the whole thing going up by 4 feet? Is that 3? The whole, everything.
So the top of foundation now is at 9.7. The proposed foundation will be at 12. So it has to be constructed according to the flood resistant construction of the Mass Building Code. So it'll be a slab. It can't be an open foundation. So they're not regrading up to 12. They're just regrading to soften the exposure of the foundation.
So the foundation will be exposed, and then they'll use the landscaping material to try to. So the existing crawl space, the slab will be, is that being filled, or is the slab going to be at the level of the bottom of the existing crawl space?
No, it's all coming out. So
that will be filled to.
Coming out, the area will be filled, and
Okay.
these it'll be a 4-foot pour. It has to have a frost wall. But in order to conform, you can't have any flooding space. It will be designed to conform to Mass State Building Code, but just generally, it's going to be a slab on a 4-foot frost wall.
Right, and that frost wall will be equipped with all of the flood vents and all of the other requirements that FEMA requires?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're not proposing to mask the whole thing, not filling the lot to elevation 12, just filling it in a little bit. You see the 10-foot contour in the back, would just be dragged around the front, just to soften it visually. And then you're right, landscaping will set it in its property better.
Okay. And so the current floodplain line that runs down the back at elevation 11, so most of this lot is in the coastal floodplain, right? Is in land subject to coastal storm flowage?
Correct.
At some point, I thought in the application, I thought I saw a reference to only 1,000 square feet was in the floodplain. And I thought that struck me as too low.
No, that's an alteration in the floodplain. So 1,000 square feet is the combined square footage of the deck and the house.
Okay.
That's what's being altered, but it's the same. So it's coming out and going back. They like numbers in the boxes on that form.
And then once all of this is done, what is the, I see there's no mitigation proposed because you're staying within the existing footprint. So there's no increase in coverage, right?
Right, and that form that you have us fill out with the little boxes is no change in coverage at all. And when you get behind contour 11 in the backyard, you're out of your jurisdiction.
Correct.
And the front is pretty much, the driveway, it's a small lot. It's only 5,600.
5,600 square feet. It is small. And since the front will be still within jurisdiction, I don't see any proposal for landscaping, for how it will be landscaped.
I have a general note that they'll use a conservation mix for any lawn or reseeding the disturbed area, which will be the whole lot. You can't help it.
Right.
If you want to put a condition in that foundation plants are to be native, I'm sure that's fine. I have native foundation plants.
With that, yep.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Other than that, there's not a lot of room left on the site after you put the driveway in.
Right. Okay. Thank you. That was quick. You got it.
Janet? Yes, I echo the notion of having natives for the foundation plants, and that was really my only question. Bob?
Yes, there's a pitch pine next to the driveway. That's going to remain.
I didn't notice a pitch pine on. I don't see. So it would be on the west side of the driveway.
Yes, I'm pretty sure there was one anyway, if I recall. There was some broken branches in the driveway too.
There was.
Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, if it's on that side of the driveway, I don't see why it has to be removed unless would be in the aerial space of the new house.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I mean, I think you could save it. So we could put that as a condition too, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't know how old it is. I know that when I put addition on my house, I took that opportunity to take down a tree just because I didn't want it crashing into my new, very expensive addition. So I will defer to your awareness of it. I don't even remember it being there. But if it looks like a healthy pine to you.
Yeah, I think it's somewhat healthy, I think. Maybe it could be, some dead wood could be pruned out of it, but aside from that, I think it's okay to remain. That's all I had. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, short and sweet. We'll put a couple of conditions in there. Try to save the pine and native foundation plants, and I think that's all I remember. So I think we're ready, Bob.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we continue 19 Stoughton Lane to the work session on April 6th, 2022 with the changes.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Elise,
Aye.
and I vote aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next order of conditions is for, or notice of intent, sorry, is for Homestead Lane East, Keith and Linda Burkhauser, map 16C, parcel 8971, SC 103548, proposed repairs and changes to access stairs.
Hi, this is Catherine Ricks with Coastal Engineering here on behalf of the applicants. Am I allowed to share my screen to do a presentation?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I would prefer it.
Okay, so this is for Homestead Lane East, and we are proposing multiple features on the property. There are a few upland features within the 50 to 100 foot buffer, and then we'll be redoing the coastal bank. So this is just the plan view of the overall proposed project. We have our staging and access from the driveway and then across the lawn. Proposed decorative fence just around the area where there's a generator and a couple AC units. And then we have proposed extension of the patio to the east side of the house, kind of square off that location. And then I know on the plan you've received, there's a proposed screened-in porch, but we've decided, the applicants decided to change that to just a proposed patio on the seaward side of that picket fence there. So that's a proposed 10 to 15 foot patio right there out between that 50 and 100 foot buffer area. And then go on to the coastal bank, and Wilkinson will be presenting their part, but for us, we have the access stairs. There's existing access stairs that are kind of deteriorating and not very safe. They go straight down one shot. So we have a platform to go out over the bank before the stairs go down to allow some area between the bank and the stairs, and then a platform going across at 4 foot by 14, and it's the outer 4 feet max, and then the second set of stairs to go down. And within that platform, we have a bench that leans out, so it's no additional posts to support it, but it is a bench so that people can sit at this location. They have some elderly relatives that visit often during the summer, and they wanted to have somewhere where they could rest in between the different locations. And also, there is very minimal dry beach in this area, so they wanted to have the bench to sit, because instead of having to bring down chairs all the way to that minimal beach area where you really wouldn't be able to move around anyone. So we felt that for safety reasons, we have the platform and the bench to have somewhere to sit, since there's not much area on the beach. And then this is just the cross-section view of the stairs that we're proposing. And just some pictures to show the minimal sand area between the bottom of the bank and the salt marsh. So there's very little area to put any chairs to sit down in that area. This is the picture on the right, is where the patio will be in that area on the west side of the house. And then the generator and AC unit area that'll just be covered. The fence won't be high, it won't be the 6 foot, it'll be just like a 4 foot, just enough to visually cover what's there. And then this shows the area from 2 different points of view on the east side of the house, where they're going to extend the patio, kind of corner off that patio, the 2 rounded patios that they have now. And then if I can unshare mine, and I don't know if Wilkinson has a presentation or if Ian or Katrina were going to do the presentation, but they have their portion on the invasive species. And so I'll turn it over to them.
Thank you very much. Maybe Nikki, is it easy for you to throw up a plan, a resto plan?
Yep,
as you
yeah,
have been?
just give me a second. Yeah, that's easy.
For the record, my name is Ian Peach, and I'm here along with Katrina Higgins, representing the project for Wilkinson Ecological Design.
Hello.
So I'll just start in, and maybe the plan will pop up as I'm moving through this. Our proposed restoration at 4 Homestead Lane East aims to restore the native plant communities throughout the entire coastal bank and into the 50-foot buffer. We've used a thoughtful process of site analysis and design and developed an ecological restoration approach that will remove all of the invasive plant populations, restore the native plant communities with a greater diversity of species, and improve the wildlife functions of the site. We're proposing 5,000 square feet of invasive plant removal and native plant restoration. All areas of invasive plant removal will be immediately stabilized with the native seed mix specified on the restoration plan you're looking at, and then planted with native species that are specifically selected to restore a lasting and ecologically robust plant community. In addition, I should note we are proposing 150 native grasses and forbs that you can see to diversify that vegetated buffer above the coastal bank. The species are chosen to support pollinators, as we often aim to do, and they will increase that native biomass right above the top of bank to infiltrate the stormwater before it reaches Little Mill Pond. In addition, we're proposing 49 native maritime shrubs sited in clusters throughout the site based on, aspect and existing conditions on the site and proposed conditions as far as where they're located on the bank in terms of elevation. And really overall, we've noticed on this site existing, it had some definitely exposed soils. And so it's not only a wonderful opportunity for invasive plant management, which it is in need of with species like Asiatic bittersweet, privet, and shrub and vine honeysuckle, as well as Norway maple. But it also could really help from our stabilizing native grass mix that will get on there immediately with the invasive plant mix. So overall, there's 20 different native species proposed in this project. We see it as kind of a straightforward but very solid restoration project on the coastal bank, and also moving into that 50 buffer to kind of work together to have a substantial benefit to the wetland protection of the site and the entire resource area. So that's our restoration approach, and Katrina and I are here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, who has questions? Karen has questions.
Why are you changing the location of the lower part of the stairs? Why not just expand the platform that exists there and have the stairs go straight down? Because the way you have them, I believe it goes to an area that's used as sort of a walkway around Little Mill Pond, and it would block people's ability to walk. Are you planning to put stairs so people can go from one side to the other across your stairs, or what is the plan to deal with that?
I didn't think that it was actually interfering with that walkway there. We're not extending any further out onto the beach area there. It's just ending at the bottom of the bank.
Okay, it looked like from the staking that it was, and that's why I was asking.
That may have been the work limit. The work limit extends slightly onto there in order to get the stairs in, but we're not extending the stairs any further. Let me see if I can pull this up again. We're not planning to extend. You can see the stairs end at the same location, but if they may have put the work limit, which does extend into there, just in order to get the stairs in. And we did the platform area so that there's a rest area. We didn't do it straight, because if someone was to, this is just a safety thing. If someone was to trip and fall at the top of the stairs and there's no break in the plane, then we feel that they could keep falling down. We hope that doesn't happen, but that's a lot of times why we do those little lateral platforms instead of having a straight stair continue down. But it doesn't encroach any further into that beach area.
Okay. And there were a huge amount of stakes up at the top of the bank, all different colors with all different years on them. I was just curious what the purpose of all those were. Some said 2002, and they went pretty far back.
I am unaware of the different stakes for that. I would only know where there's stakes for the stair location and then the patio extensions in the patio.
Right.
So I don't know if possibly Wilkinson may have put something out there or if the homeowner had something out there previously.
There's quite a few of them.
Yeah, we don't have anything staked related to our, that at this moment.
I noticed the same thing. There were quite a few stakes.
Okay, so I'm not nuts.
No, you're not nuts. Well, at least you're not in this regard. So
Thank
anyway,
you.
I'm
saw
wondering,
those.
and if they were reusing stakes from something else and forgot to cross out previous dates from a different project, but this one shouldn't have had different dates on the stakes. It should have just been the patio extensions and the stairway location.
Okay, well, they're there, and
Okay.
They're
they are
I can
they're
go
there,
check
and
on.
they're confusing.
And they don't look old.
Right.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Karen. Bob.
Okay, the existing cherries, black cherries that are there now on the bank. You say that you wanna cut those back to 6 to 8 feet. What's the purpose of doing that?
So this is a strategy we've used for many years now in Chatham as well. It's actually what we call a coppice approach. You've probably seen it in our land management. We want to retain the root structure for stability, and we want to really, it brings almost more biomass quite quickly, especially cherries. They just jump immediately. So the idea was instead of proposing any native tree removal on the site, which we wanted to steer the project away from, that to satisfy some of the project goals, to not have the cherries growing into the view and to not have them fall and destabilize the bank, that now they're at a nice age to make that coppice move and allow them to regrow to that height. So we're getting the stability, the biomass, the habit, the wildlife benefit without, dealing with some of the potential challenges with the cherries are at the age of arriving at soon.
Okay, and you say you're gonna maintain that 6 to 8 feet height?
Yes.
Okay, and how would you do that without affecting the health of the tree?
So it's like a phasing, rotational coppicing is kind of another way of thinking about it, because we're working on land management. Once they reach us that certain height, you're not kind of all at once doing this round shrub. You're taking certain of the regrown leaders, one year when they reach that height, and the next year when a couple more reach that height. So you're always maintaining a sufficient amount of biomass and structure. It's not treating it like a boxwood hedge. It's a little bit more, naturalized pruning approach.
And how long would that pruning be done? How many years?
Well, on the regrow, they grow really quick. It would probably be in our second or third year on the order of the project when we'd have our first cuts. And then we'd be asking for ongoing conditions to be able to maintain that height.
Okay, so that would be a long-term type of practice then.
Exactly.
Okay, and the cedar, the red cedar that's towards the top of the bank, you say that you want to prune that up to allow for views. It's really not in the view corridor per se. Is it really necessary to prune that up off the ground?
So this, again, we wanted to steer off of any native plant or any tree removal, native tree removal on the bank or right in that buffer. We were really trying to find ways to satisfy some of the project goals. When you're on site on that patio, it really is just 12 o'clock. I mean, it's right there. It adds some rhythm to the view. There's obviously the ecological benefits to have that cedar as a living tree. But we find, with just some strategic ability to open up some air and light with a cedar at that age, we can satisfy some of the applicant's goals with removing the Norway maple behind it. So you'll be able to look a little bit through the cedar and get that filtered view instead of doing something substantial like removing it. So we feel that it's kind of a light touch approach that still would satisfy the project goals.
And you wouldn't stress out the plant if you did that?
No, it's a certain percentage, with that we make sure we're well under in terms of taking any living biomass from the plant.
Mhm. Okay, that's all I had for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Janet? No, Janet.
I think you're muted.
You're muted, Janet.
I am, I'm there, I'm unmuting.
Okay.
I was just asking, in the case of that cedar, what would that percentage be?
Offhand, I mean, with that, it's under 10 to 15% or less even. It's almost would come down to, specific limbs just for health and air that, and not going above that.
And not do nothing in the canopy, nothing, I mean.
Well, nothing like topping or anything drastic where you say, what happened to that tree? It's a method to be able to get some air and light and health, a little bit of that filtered view, but nothing drastic. Yeah.
Okay. Well, one way we handle some of these things is just set up a process so that you would figure out exactly which limbs were going to come off, and then consult with Nicole and get her approval to make sure that she signs off on that before the work is done. We can put that in the order.
Sure.
Okay, good. That would work. There's a reference to hand clearing the bank as well as mechanical. Do you have any sense of how much mechanical? I mean, we've been allowing it, and then we've been astonished to see that banks have been completely cleared by mechanical devices, as opposed to what we had thought would be primarily hand clearing, and then only. So what is the thought about the state of the invasives and what's going to be required to remove them?
So the state of the invasives here is definitely on the higher end in terms of, edge to edge on the property. You have a band at the base of the bank of that high tide bush and high marsh that, is an established plant community that we're actually augmenting with our planting. But as you move up the bank, it becomes 60, 70, 80 higher, besides the few trees that we've spoken to. So there will be a stage where this looks, open to a degree, and but we're immediately seeding it with that mix for stabilizing and getting the cover while we continue to work on the invasive plants. I think the division between mechanical and handwork here, even when it could be some winching of materials from the top of the bank, just to allow, the back saving labor, but not something that, we always aim to leave, all the native soils in place as much as possible. We don't want to have to disturb and churn up the seed bank of any invasive plants that we, inadvertently. So I think it's more, low pressure equipment, following the access route as articulated, winching from the top, reaching down into it, but not a wholesale kind of moving all over the bank with mechanical equipment.
Okay. I'll be curious to see how that works out there. So in addition to that bank clearing, your mitigation plan also calls for a rather oddly shaped, and I guess I want to know about that, mitigation area in the no disturb zone at the top that creates the vegetated buffer strip that we're always looking for, particularly where properties are on a downward slope to the top of the bank. Why is it shaped like that, and which leaves the western side really without any VBS?
I see. Yes. So the simple answer for that is we're working off an existing, unmanaged, minimally managed Cape Cod lawn edge. It just so happens that this homeowner was already had some amount of vegetative buffer, albeit besides the cedars, mostly invasive plants that were existing above the top of the bank. So we see, well, you've got this area that has already been stitched into your program as a vegetative buffer. It's quite substantial when you think of proportion, there. So why not transition that, to these diverse forbs, grasses, shrubs, and the native grass layer. So really, it's just inheriting an existing program on the property of Lawn Edge.
Okay, I get that on the eastern side where that's begun to transition even into that. But on the western side, there's essentially no strip at the top. So you have maybe 2 feet or so where a couple of shrubs will go before you hit the top of the bank. Could that not be expanded to provide a bit more robust protection for that top of the bank?
Well, obviously we'd have the access to the top of the stairs. There may be, I know a certain amount of that Cape Cod lawn area was valued by the applicant, but there may be some room to kind of soften those lines. And I know any little bit you get above the top of the bank is of value to.
It's huge value always, but in particularly it's valuable where the property slopes down to the bank, so that and of course in that regard, because of that and because it's the no disturb zone, the order will have all of the usual conditions about no use of fertilizers, pesticides, and no in-ground irrigation in this lawn area. But it's also the vegetated buffer strip also catches any stormwater runoff that could be contaminated with who knows what. From getting down into the resource area there. So if they could do something to make that a little bit more robust than the thin strip that's currently proposed would be good. That's all I have. Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay. I don't see any hands up, so I'll jump in. I guess this project struck me differently perhaps than some. I saw a house that has a substantial patio along the entire back. And then I see in the proposal a pretty substantial patio being added on one end of the house. Then I hear that the screen porch on the other side of the house will also be patio. And then I look down at the proposal for the stairs, and I see essentially 2 platforms, one of which appears to be a viewing platform as much as is a safety break in the descent of the stairs. It's 14 feet long with integrated bench. So typically it's been our practice not to go for that in terms of viewing platforms or even, decks essentially on a coastal bank. And so that's the way it came across to me. I couldn't understand it didn't seem to make sense to me to approve all that additional patio plus the viewing platform. Because the viewing platform does block vegetation, blocks sunlight to the vegetation underneath. And if we were to allow that, I think there would be plenty of applicants before who would come back and say, wait a minute, why did you give it to them when you didn't give it to us? So that's how it struck me. So I'm throwing that out there, and you can please reply as you wish.
Okay. So the patios were extended because we were doing the mitigation on the bank. So he just wanted to, and the mitigation on the bank is over 5,000 square feet and the patios are less than that, but he was just kind of using the mitigation on the bank to be able to get the hardscape cover for the patio extensions. So that was where and we can work on those as well. We can shift those. The stairs were more the concern, getting the stairs in there, and with the elderly, letting them have a place to go and sit. The bench isn't like it doesn't have the supports on it. It's just one of those ones that leans back just to give a short break there. It's not like a full bench out from the bottom. It's not going to have the supports on it. So, and it's only we're not going more than that 4 foot wide that the stairs would be. So no matter where the platform would be, we're not going wider than that 4 feet, the 4 foot width, but then the bench leans out from there. And they felt because the owners of the house have elderly that visit, 4 to 5 elderly that visit at a time, they wanted them to be able to sit there between going all the way down or coming up the stairs.
Yeah, I understand the goal. I'm just I'm questioning
and we
ecological value.
Yes, I understand. And it's a minimal the stairs overall in this location versus other locations in Chatham, these stairs overall are minimal in their coverage. And also we can accept any conditions on if the decking, you know, the spacing of the deck boards or other materials that allow more light to go through. The client's willing to look at the other materials and different spacing of the deck to allow the light to go through. And that's also why we tried to lift it off. So the first platform is in order to walk out and have the stairs off the bank slightly to allow more light through. So those can be adjusted as well.
Okay, good. Is there a way for you to shorten that viewing platform?
I can discuss it with my client, though I do know that he would prefer the 14 in order to have that 10-foot bench to sit.
Oh, it's a 10-foot bench. Oh, okay.
Well, because you have the 4 feet for the stairs coming down, so it wouldn't fully be 10 feet. It would be the 4 feet with the handrails, and then you'd have your bench, but then you'd also have the handrail on the other side. So it's not a full 10-foot bench, but that's where it is in order to comfortably sit 3 to 4 adults.
Okay, so the stairs, or you're saying those are 4 feet wide?
The maximum is the 4 foot, I believe, from outside to outside. I believe that's the regulations.
When I look at the diagram or the site plan, or it's, you know, it doesn't, and you're saying that viewing platform, what I'm calling a viewing platform, is 4 by 14. It looks much wider than 4 if you look at the stairs and say that those are 4.
It may look wider because the bench, so the bench we showed as a rectangle, but it doesn't, it leans out. It
leans out. Okay, so that's including
it's more just one piece. It's not, and there's other ones we've done in Chatham where we have them leaning out. So it's not like it's a full deck area to stand. It's just the seat that leans out from the back of the supports that are on the platform going across.
Okay. Well,
so it doesn't create any, the area to walk is less than 4 feet going across.
Yes.
When you have the handrails and everything are the outside.
Well, my overall reaction, I think, remains, and that is, you've got a lot of patio. You're adding a lot more patio, which is a great place to set for the elderly, and they don't have to risk going downstairs at all. And then your applicants are also asking for a viewing platform on the coastal bank. So I'm personally question that, and I'm not in favor of it. But I'm just one vote. So if are you Bob?
Yeah, I'd like to see a shorter platform there, even by a couple of feet. That would help. And that way you would get like how long of a bench, maybe an 8-foot bench or a 6-foot bench or something like that.
I was thinking of cutting it in half, but you know, as I say, I'm also worried about setting a precedent here where anybody who has a property like this can say, wow, we can put a viewing platform down there and life is good. But it does have ecological impacts and implications.
And we do understand, and I've talked to the applicant about using different materials as the decking boards in order to allow light through.
Yeah, I don't know how you could really get enough light through there's only so far you can space boards before they become.
Yes, and then the other materials that we're looking at is those flow-through decking that's used on a lot of docks and piers, and that has a lot more light that goes through. So those are just a couple of items we're looking at this time.
Okay. So you're looking at a bunch of things.
Well, either the option, if we'd like to keep that length, and in order to, if we can keep that length, if we do a different decking style in order to allow the more light through for the vegetation, then the client would like to go with that.
Okay, well, from my perspective, I'm not in favor of it, but if you're going to come back with some revised plans, we'll look at them.
I got one more thing, Bob.
Okay.
And you know, related to that, would you be planting under the stairs and that deck?
Ian can address. Ian, you're muted.
Thank you. Excuse me. So as you see on our plan, and I've probably seen our projects, we almost always want to go edge to edge comprehensively with our seeding and stabilizing. Obviously, everybody's correct in highlighting that levels of shade prohibit some amount of growth, but we'd be hopeful that with the design approach and the materials, as Catherine articulated, that we would have with our seed mix that spans some abilities to colonize in different light levels, we would have some germination and blanketing in that area,
Okay.
erosion control blanketing.
Right. Okay, thank you. That's all I had for now.
Thanks.
Karen.
Well, first of all, I agree with Bob. I am bothered, as you heard, about the size of that platform. But have you considered, since I asked if you could still have the stairs go straight down rather than creating a whole new area for stairs, have you considered putting a gate at the platform that would prevent anybody from continuing to fall down the stairs? Because I'm assuming that you'll have something at the bottom of that first set of stairs that if somebody were falling, it would stop them, because then they're going to go another direction.
I actually,
thought.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. We haven't designed any like that before, so I can bring that to the applicant as well.
That would be good. I just, then maybe you can have a smaller platform. You can maybe not have such a change in what's being covered as what is now.
Okay. I'll go back to the applicant with that.
Thank you. That's it.
Okay. So sounds like we will have, you'll be talking with your applicant and potentially coming back with a revised design. What else do we have? Janet was interested in having a more robust VBS, which I agree with. Anyone else have any, anybody else require anything else or is asking for anything else? Just go ahead and let me know. That's all I have written down. Okay. So next work session. Okay.
Or do you want to continue?
Continue. Yeah, continue to the next work session. I'm sorry, next hearing. I'm sorry. Yeah, I had it wrong.
Yeah, I was just about to say that I think April 13th is what we were planning on.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we continue 4 Homestead Lane East to the next hearing on April 13th, 2022.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
I vote aye. We'll see you then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have our last 3 notices of intent. They are, I'm just going to open all of these together as one. And then if we need to continue them to separate dates or whatever, we can deal with that in the motions. But it is, sorry, my allergies just all of a sudden like picked up. We have 27 to Lippy Run, New Milford Realty Core, map 15A3, parcel N137 103546, proposed rock revetment reconstruction, return extension, and elevation extensions. 59 to Lippy Run, 59 to Lippy Run Trust, map 15A3, parcel 1 N137, SE 103545, proposed rock revetment reconstruction and elevation extension. And 75 to Lippy Run Chatham Seabreeze LLC, map 14A3, parcel N131, SE 103547, rock revetment, reconstruction, and elevation extension.
Okay. Catherine Ricks with Coastal Engineering here on behalf of.
Sorry, Catherine. Do you have a presentation? Is there a certain plan you want me to share?
I was gonna say if I could share my screen again, I do have a presentation for this as well.
Yep, perfect. Thank you.
So you don't have to pick up your plans. Okay. I'm going to see. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of break it off and do 59 and 75 as one, since we do have the additional, a little bit different on the 27 Tilapy run. So I'm just kind of spreading them out that way. And all the questions can come after if we want to do it that way, that's fine. So this is 75 Tilapy Run, where we're proposing to reconstruct the existing revetment and extend the height to 21 feet NAVD. And you can see it tapers to the west side and then comes across and goes into the property on 59 Tilapy Run. And there is fill placed up into the bank in order to support the increased elevation, because the slope does come lower than the increase in elevation of the revetment. And here are the proposed cross sections that you can see in this area. And then we have 59 Tilapy Run, where again, we have some fill in the upland in order to support the increased height to 21 feet. So we'll be rebuilding the existing revetment and increasing the height. And again, these are the cross sections for that. And we aren't moving seaward with any of the revetments. And I know that was a DMF comment. We don't plan to move seaward with the toe of any of the revetments. And here shows the aerial imagery from a drone that we have for the 75 Tilapy Run and the upper edge for the buffer zone in 59 Tilapy Run. This image is along the toe of the revetment, going from 75 looking north towards 59 and 27. I don't know if you want me to break it up and do questions on those, or if you would like me to move on to the additional work on 27.
I think you should just proceed with as you have it.
Okay. So then we have 27 Tilapy Run, where we have the rebuild of the existing revetment to the property line, extending it to the 21 feet elevation. And at the existing revetment that goes beyond the property line will remain as is. And then along the property line, just inside the property line, we are doing a bulkhead, sheet pile bulkhead along the property line in order to protect the flank at 27 Tilapy Run. As we know, there has been a lot of erosion over on the wildlife refuge property, and we feel that in order to protect their house, we have to do the bulkhead. And in order to reduce the impacts at this time, we're doing the straight sheet pile wall. And eventually it could become where that sheet pile wall becomes smaller and in towards the house, and able to do a sloped rock revetment on the property. And obviously a sloped revetment is more ideal than a straight sheet pile wall, because there's more wave reflection off of a vertical face than there is off of a sloped face, and rock revetments absorb more wave energy than a vertical sheet pile wall. But at this time, in order to stay on the property of 27 Tilapy Run, we are doing just the 90-degree return on that. I will further explain why we would like to leave why it benefits everyone to leave the revetment that extends onto 30 Wickus Way where it is. So this is the cross sections for the revetment that's in front of 27 Tilapy Run. This is the cross section of the vertical bulkhead that will be going along the property line. And you see the multiple tiebacks. When it's first placed, they'll only be the tieback at the top. As that bank erodes, the additional tiebacks would be put in until it reaches down to the beach level. And then the applicant would likely want to move the bulkhead back in order to place a revetment, the toe would start where this bulkhead is now, well, where the bulkhead is proposed. Oh, I want to just get into wave refraction, diffraction, and reflection, which comes into that piece of the revetment that extends onto the wildlife refuge. Its wave diffraction is occurring at that point where the waves come into the revetment, and the diffraction happens off the end where the waves will fan out. Waves fan out. It's almost like a offshore breakwater or nearshore breakwater. The waves fan out, so actually the energy from the wave dissipates across a full fan instead of being generalized into one location. So it's reducing, it's slowing the erosion now along that area, and it's only affecting the end of it's only, you can see in the video that I'll present, only affects approximately maybe the wave within 5 feet of the tip of the revetment, and then it dissipates that wave energy over the fan, so it's slowing the erosion behind it. We feel like if we remove it, it's going to increase the erosion along that the property line there on both properties. So I actually would like to share a quick video that I took while we were out there, and this will show when you look at where the wave hits the end of the revetment, you can see that a portion of that wave just continues on in the same format that it's going, and the portion of the wave approximately 5 feet from the end will then fan out and it diffracts into that area, and you can see that all that wave energy from one point then gets to go fan out, and it reduces that wave energy that hits the shoreline. And we feel like since it's spreading out the energy, it's actually less energy hitting the shoreline now, and we feel it benefits to leave that what's now pretty much a near shore breakwater in that area. It benefits both 30 Wickes Way to hold that last bit of material in that area, and also helps to protect 27 Tillapee, so it'll slow the erosion in that area. And just want to go back to a couple of pictures. We can see that we had drone image from 12/8/2021. And then when we were out there on 3/18, you can see from the side where that is. And this shows the dramatic erosion that has occurred out there in the past couple of years. The picture on your right is 4/14/2020. If you look in the background, that staircase is the staircase that was on the wildlife refuge property that 27 Tillapee Run shared, but it's on the wildlife refuge property. We know it's not there any longer. And you can see the wildlife refuge bank is all the way out there along the shoreline, straight along the revetment. And then the May 3rd, 2021 photo that's in a report that was done for the town of Chatham, you can see that it has eroded in 1 year. There's been a significant amount of erosion, and the erosion has continued, which is why that drone image now shows you the continued erosion that occurred. And so that's why we're really want to protect that flank onto 27 Tillapee Run. So if there are any questions, and I can go back to any of the slides that we have.
Yes, thank you. Dramatic imagery, to say the least. So I'll just go ahead and open it up for questions from anybody.
Okay. Real quick, Catherine, if you could just send me the two, this presentation and the last one you did, just to make it part of our files, that would be very helpful.
Do you want me to send just a PDF of both of them?
Yeah, just the PDF. Yeah, no hard copies or anything.
It'll likely have to be a reduced file just because they are quite big.
That's fine. And then I guess also did the meeting with Fish and Wildlife and the neighbor happen?
I believe that, I can't see everyone on Teams, but I believe that a member of our point of contact of Fish and Wildlife is on. The meeting did occur, and I think, yeah, he wants to speak now if.
Yes, please do. Mr. Nye.
Hello, yes, thank you, Commissioners. My name is Rick Nye. I manage Monomoy National Wildlife Refuge. We have spoken with the neighbor several times about trying to figure out what might work for both of us. Right now, the Fish and Wildlife Service is not open to building anything on the refuge land right now. Our process is quite complicated. We've had many discussions about trying to figure out how to do this. I do have funding requests to do a feasibility study for doing something, but I don't have a good answer for anything we could allow at this point. We are concerned with a bulkhead only type option, but I understand that something that includes a revetment would be better than the amount of erosion that might occur with the bulkhead only type approach.
Can I stop you just for a moment?
Sure.
Mr. Nye, we're getting a message here, 5 minutes left in your scheduled meeting time. So I want to make sure that that's not a real, oops, it just went away. Okay. Okay, please continue.
Sure. No, that's pretty much it. I just, we're trying to figure it out, and I know we don't move as fast as we need to, but yeah. Yeah, we've talked about it, and that's about as far as I can say at the moment.
So there's no way, you're not in a position to say whether or not you will be able to somehow tie in with their proposed project.
Not at this time, no. That would be part of the feasibility study that I would request that we come up with a solution that would include that, or some sort of wave attenuation that might work, because we have conservation goals that we have to meet as well. We have obligations for the whole refuge, or maybe something that ties in with the town's plan with the veins to try to encourage sand to accrete. But yeah, I don't even have money for the feasibility study yet, so nothing.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
So, since I don't see, oh, there's hands aplenty. Go ahead, John.
Who, me?
Yeah, you. Yes, you.
Okay. I have a cleanup item question, and it may just be the result of preparing 3 applications together. But as far as I understand it, only 27 is asking for, and we'll talk about this later, granite stairs to be installed down the revetment. I don't see any reference in the application for 27 to that, but I see it in 59 and 75, where there are existing stairs. So is that, do I have that right, that that's just needs to be cleaned up, or is there actually, are they really requesting that?
They are requesting the granite steps within the revetment, similar to the other 2 properties. We do have it on our plan. I apologize if it's not in the narrative.
That's what I'm sorry. 29 is asking for it, right? Is that what you're saying?
59, 75 have existing
Right.
timber stairs, two rock stairs, and they're going to continue. They want to include that in theirs. 27 didn't, because they had the stairs that they were sharing with the wildlife refuge. So at this time, they do want to include, same idea as the other ones, the stairs down approximately the center of their rebuild revetment.
Okay, I thought that was a situation, but the way that the applications are, the request for the stairs is in 59 and in 75, but it's not in 27. So
I apologize for that.
That's no problem. I figured I worked that through. How do you do installation of granite steps on an existing revetment? Do you have to remove the revetment rocks, or how does that work?
The proposed project is actually to rebuild the existing revetments and then extend their height, because instead of just, if you go to increase the height and just use what's there now as the base, you're not keying in all those rocks, and that's a slip point. So it's better to rebuild the full revetment so every rock keys in and you don't have a flat joint there where it would extend. So the whole thing will be rebuilt, and the granite steps will be built as they were previously.
Okay, so that was my next question, is how do you elevate on it? So the whole revetment comes out right down.
Yeah, you really have to rebuild the whole thing.
Including the toe stones down at the bottom, everything. And then it's all rebuilt.
Correct.
Okay.
And it would be rebuilt obviously in phases, and due to the, the title, it's not going to be done at a high tide where the work would be done in the wet, that, the contractor would want to do it in the dry. It's complicated, probably a long process, but it would be rebuilt.
Okay. I know that we all have concerns, and I'll let somebody else address some ideas for resolving the issue of elevation. But let me just start by saying, what was the modeling that was done, or what assumptions were built into the model about sea level rise and storm surge that led to a result of a 21-foot elevation?
I did not do, I had someone in the office, one of our engineers, do the wave analysis, and he did complete it and redid it. So, he's worked his way through the numbers, and we can submit that as well for each of the properties. I will note that, we show the FEMA flood zone and the FEMA BFE that we go by on so many properties. The date of the FEMA map, which means the modeling was done prior to the published date. The date of the FEMA map is 2014, and we all know that break that caused a lot of the increase in the waves there was in 2017. So our data includes wind and waves after that. So there's, looking at the base flood elevation really doesn't do a lot for this area.
No, that's what I'm asking about, is what was
so we can submit Yeah, we can submit our
Yeah,
wave
well,
analysis.
and I'll also say that submitting it to us is not, we're not engineers, we don't know, but we're gonna need some help in understanding this, and I think I'll let Bob and Nikki talk about that.
Okay.
The other thing, and this is connected to it, is the amount of fill that's going to be required to support this elevated. I mean, I see it on the site plan. Is there a volume calculation about how much fill we're talking about here?
We were still working on that, so I can get that to you as well.
Okay. And that's primarily on 75 and 59. I don't think 27.
27 has enough bank that it is up there. Part of 59 is up to that elevation, but part of it slopes down further, so that only a portion of it has fill on that one.
Okay. And did I notice, I have a note here on 75, that the top of bank moves. At some point, it's below the top of the revetment, and on other parts, the top of the bank is above the revetment. Is that?
So we did the top of bank based on the policy 92-1. So there's kind of a curve in just the way it slopes over there. There's different edges to the bank, top of the bank, which then would be redefined with the fill and the extension of the revetment. But it's been looked at multiple times in our office to make sure that we followed with where the contours are, where the breaks are, where the FEMA line is, to define that top of coastal bank based on that policy 92-1.
Okay, so that's why it shows it moving.
It does look. It looks very on plan.
Okay. I have more, but I've been talking enough, and I'm going to let others address some of the other questions about the elevations and the lack of the mitigation. So I'll stop. Thank you.
Oh, and yes, I know mitigation was brought up on site, and all the applicants I've reached out, and they are all willing to do mitigation for the increased elevation.
Good.
Okay, good.
Karen.
So you've already touched on a couple of my questions, which was the amount of fill and the mitigation. 75, what happens if that neighbor to them on the side that hasn't applied for an NOI doesn't increase their revetment? Is it possible that that's going to doom part of 75's taller revetment? Because when we were there the other day at 59, it was coming up to the rocks and over. I can see it coming over rocks, and I couldn't see how high theirs is because there's so much brush. But is that an issue, or how is that handled?
So in order to reduce any effects onto the property next to it, we do taper down before it. But if that were to start, if they don't do anything and it were to start eroding at that end, it would then curve back as a return on their property in order to protect their property. But obviously, we can hope that it would be a continuous structure around that end, but it does taper down so that we are preventing the scour onto the other property, but also it could curve back into a return if that does end up eroding at that end.
Does it look like that neighbor is going to join in this? You had said you were waiting to hear.
I have not heard. I do not know if that
Okay.
neighbor's going to. I haven't heard anything.
All right, that's pretty much what I had.
All right, thank you, Karen. No, seeing no hands, I will sort of add to. I would enjoy looking at, even if I don't understand it, the rationale for calculating the height of this revetment. Let's see. Maybe we can answer Paul. Can't pronounce the name. Can't see it. Greisler. If you'd like to, do you have something to say about this, or?
I have a question.
Oh, okay.
Can the proposal that's in front of us?
Can you identify yourself?
I'm Paul Griska. I actually live the next house over beyond these three.
Okay, you're a butter. Okay. Oh, there we go.
I'm on the other side of Fish and Wildlife.
Oh, I see. All right.
On Wicky's Way. Our house is set back several hundred feet from the ocean, so we're not worried about it immediately. But I am concerned about the Fish and Wildlife and my neighbors. can this proposal that's in front of us be carried out even without the Fish and Wildlife jumping in to help? In other words, it's a property line go up to the Fish and Wildlife property line?
Do you want me to answer?
Yes,
that?
please. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, so the reason that we did the proposal for the vertical bulkhead along the property line at 27 Tillipee Run was in order to have it all on the Tillipee Run property and not on the Wickus Way property, so that could be done. It could be just the applicant there, the homeowner, applying for it and not having to have the wildlife refuge sign for anything or do the work on their property.
So that's why there's a straight bulkhead that's to be filled in from behind.
The bulkhead doesn't need to be filled in from behind. The bulkhead would go in, and then as the material in front of it erodes away, we can pull it back and put a sloped rock revetment. But there doesn't need to be any fill at this time behind it. It actually would just go into where the elevation of the existing ground level there.
Terrific. The other question is once this is all in place, is there plans for monitoring what's actually happening? Meaning, does this plan work? And how do we know? And when can we undo if we had to?
I know there's typically monitoring conditions in the order of conditions, and we would expect the monitoring in the annual nourishment conditions that are typical.
I would imagine this is not the last meeting for this project. I just want to point out that the view I have, the access I have to the ocean, to the beach, is the proposed access for the heavy machinery to put this revetment in place. Those big machines coming across the dunes is going to chew up the dunes rather dramatically. And I'm hoping this committee can, well, think about access as well as the actual revetment itself.
They are not proposing to access from the beach, correct, Catherine? You're going to do from up top?
I believe as much as possible is going to be done from up top. We do have access. We show access on 27 Tillipee. We do show some proposed access on 27 Tillipee coming across their property there. And we can figure that out, but we were not trying to, we definitely wouldn't want to damage any existing bank or dune. So any conditions, and we can relook at any of the access, but any conditions that we have, we wouldn't want to disturb any other wetland resource area.
Well, that's encouraging, but I read the 83-page proposal. I guess that's been revised since that time. But it did talk about the access road from Morris Island Road to the beach. So if it's changed, that's great.
And we'll look into that more to make sure we can define that further.
Thank you.
All right, so I echo Janet's interest in seeing the scientific rationale for arriving at the 21-foot elevation of the revetment.
Yes.
Now, I'm a little confused because, I mean, the break is there, and yet you're doubling the size of the height of the revetment. So I'm a little confused as to why you're having to do that much extension. So
and our wave analysis report will further go into the reason behind the different numbers that we use in order to come up with that wave runoff.
Okay. I'll let Bob jump in and I'll step back.
Any tree removal going to happen as a result of this project?
I believe it's mostly shrubs in those areas. I don't believe there are, I'd have to look again and I'm trying to pull up.
I do recall a couple, not large trees, at the edge of where the bulkhead would go. That would probably need to be removed.
Yeah, and we could go out and flag those and determine the mitigation for them, as well as the other properties.
Okay. Great. And also, you're planning on putting filter fabric behind the boulders on the revetment?
Yes, we have the geotextile fabric that goes behind them, and then the bedding stone, and then the secondary armor stone, and then the primary armor stone.
And how about beach nourishment? Do you see any forecast to put any of that at the base?
So currently they are under an order of conditions with Outermost Harbor to take some of the sand there and place the sand. And I do believe they are thinking about doing that next time they can have it there. Outside of there, if there was an annual nourishment on, I would expect an annual nourishment condition on this, since we are putting the revetments in and increasing the height. And they would be able to do that as well. Though I do think with that, I'd have to look at where the nourishment, we'd like to put it above mean high water.
Okay. And you'd have to access from below to do that, correct?
It would be the same, the Outermost Harbor when they do the dredging and placement.
Dredging. Okay. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, anybody else? So, yeah, it sounds like we need a number of, as expected, we thought that we'd be continuing for additional information. There's also some discussion of whether or not we, Conservation Commission, is qualified in and of itself to judge the underpinnings of the need for the revetment and the proposed height and form. And I don't know if there's, if anyone, I'm not sure. Nikki, did you have a name of someone, or was it Catherine who proposed the name of someone who might be able to give us a third-party view of this?
Ted had someone.
Ted did, that's right.
He suggested Janet. I don't know if you remember the name.
Yes, John Ramsey.
Okay.
Oh, John Ramsey. Okay. Yes, well, he's an expert on what's happening out there in the water for sure.
So we will, if the commission decides, we will send a request to him, as well as, maybe a couple other people to evaluate the sites and see what they think is best. So that needs to be part of a motion if we decide to do that today.
Mm-hmm. But that would be at the expense of who?
The applicant.
Yes, for this one, it would be Coastal Engineering or their clients.
Mm-hmm. What does Coastal Engineering think about that?
I feel like I would have to reach out to my clients. I mean, I think they would probably like to see the cost of it, if there could be a cost, and then they could, move forward with it. I know they definitely want the revetment. They definitely want the increase in height. So I would say, obviously, before moving forward, they'd want the cost of it.
Well, absolutely would need a cost estimate before.
But yes, I mean, they do want to move forward with the project. So if that's the way we're moving forward, then yes, if we could get the cost for that, and I could send that over to the applicants.
Yep. So I talked to Dr. Bob the day after our site visit, or I guess a couple days after, because I think that was a Friday. And he said, basically, it would be draft a proposal of what exactly the commission is looking for this independent consultant to investigate. And then we would send it out to any qualified candidates that we thought could do that work. They would send us back a bid, and then I would send it to Catherine and or Coastal Engineering in general, and we would go from there.
Mm-hmm. What is the sense of urgency for the project?
For 27 Tillipee Run, it's pretty urgent because of all that erosion that's happening at the side.
I agree. I mean, I kind of agree with Catherine that it is. They have, before you get to that fence, it's like what, 2 feet, 3 feet? That could easily be wiped out by one storm.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we were all out there watching the Fish and Wildlife property just fall down the bank. Like we all saw it.
Yes, we saw a little avalanche while we were there. Yeah.
Yeah, so it is a little bit on the urgent side as far as the property. Is it urgent as far as any dwellings or the garage goes? No.
Well, the urgency to me would seem to be just having having approved the vertical sheet structure at this point. Is that
Yes, that's
fair
the
to
most
say?
urgent piece. That would be the most urgent piece in this.
Yeah, and so maybe at some point we need to separate that out,
Okay.
depending on how all this goes.
Okay.
Be able to prove that on its own while we futz around with how high the revetment should be. So you might be thinking about that if you can separate it. Yeah. For the consultant, we would need to vote on that. And I think it's a good idea. It's a big project, massive revetment that would be resulting. We could look at those numbers. I'm not sure if they would make much sense to us, but I do want to look at them, but we're not engineers. So I'm in favor of that. If someone would like to make a motion to that a consultant be sought to look at this proposal and give us a third-party view of it.
And would you, so you would want to make a demand that a consultant be used on this project? Or do you want to just, do you want to make a motion to just propose a?
It's a statutory process. There's a whole process laid out in the Wetlands Protection Act and in the bylaw for how you go about and when you go about. So I think the motion only needs to be that the commission approves the initiation of that process to retain independent advisor to us.
Yeah, this is a process that we are authorized to engage in. We can do this when we see it necessary.
Correct. And coastal engineering or the applicants can say no. And then we can say your project is denied because we wanted more information. So it's, you know, and I don't think that's where it's going to go. I think Catherine understands that, that we would like the independent consultant. So I don't think it's going to be an issue, but yes, so we can request one and they can deny or approve also based on the bids of the price for the consultant.
Right.
I'd like to make a motion that we seek out a consultant to review the revetment project for 59 Tilipy Run, 27 Tilipy Run, and 75 Tilipy Run.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Janet.
Aye.
Bob.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
And I vote aye. So in addition to those items, or in addition to the third-party consultant, some of the things that we talked about today had to do with more information or more detail on mitigation, some detail on access along the beach as to where it would come in from, what measures would be taken to protect the beach and the associated bank. What else?
Fill quantity calculation.
Fill quantity and yes, fill calculations.
And
what to do, you know, what trees are coming out and what mitigation is for those.
I would like to see, Catherine, if it's available, cross-section views of the proposed sheet pile of the bulkhead.
We can further develop those.
And I'd like a description of what is expected to be the impacts of that installation on the adjacent properties. or property, its own, what the impact on would be.
Right, even though I expect that the third-party report would get into that as well.
Yep. And Catherine, you mentioned a wave analysis report. Is that, yeah, and that's part of
I'll
what you're.
submit those as well, yes.
Yeah, and the slide deck, which also has good cross-section views. Is there I haven't seen it. Is there a detailed work protocol that in terms of the deconstruction and then the reconstruction of the revetment and how that's done in such a velocity zone with the
Not
salt
very
marker
detailed.
right in front?
Yeah, we can work with a couple different contractors and come up with a more detailed approach. We don't have a very detailed one because we're not a contractor. We'd have to reach out to them and determine what their typical means and methods would be for the work at this, with very minimal dry beach, really almost no dry beach at this point.
Almost no dry beach, right? Okay. Because that would be helpful in us being able to craft conditions for the work as it goes forward. Okay, that's my list.
Okay.
Also more specifics on beach nourishment too, if you can.
Well, there is a beach nourishment plan. The way I understood the application is that would not be altered or affected by this project.
Yeah, this doesn't affect the one that's in the outermost harbor one, but I know that because these would be separate orders of conditions, typically they're conditioned with the annual nourishment. And that would be something I think you guys would vote on, because I don't know if you'd want to depend on outermost harbor to do the dredging and place it there. So I would think it would be, with these, it would become something different, and that would continue on with these.
It's just identified as a dredge disposal site, and that's
Correct.
the nourishment. So we would have the usual nourishment requirements for the revetment to nourish the beach, in addition to whatever sand you're lucky enough to get from the dredge.
Correct. That's what I would expect.
Yep.
I'm just curious. I know Fish and Wildlife doesn't have the funds, and they're not willing to move forward. Was there any alternative analysis of what would happen to that sheet wall if Fish and Wildlife did proceed with the revet?
If we did, we have in our alternatives analysis, we'd prefer to do like the return of the revetment along with the existing bank. But we understand that it's difficult to get anything approved because they do have different protocols on their property. And so, if they were able to get something approved, we would go with the rock revetment return and then assist them in looking at different options for on their property, which would likely be more the soft solutions and not the hard solution. But the revetment just to cover the flank of 27 Tilapy, and then, work with them on other solutions to reduce, slow the erosion on their property. Because like it's been said, we all have seen it.
Right. Well, I didn't know if 27 Tilapy would be willing to, fund the extension of the revetment off of their property to avoid having to do the.
So the one that's there now, I believe they did have that. The issue is that they need to get permission from Wildlife Refuge in order to do any work over there. And at this time, we don't have that, and that's why we're doing the bulkhead. It's difficult because the refuge isn't, with their regulations, they're not allowed to really put hard structures on there. So they just have that one, and it's a whole process in order to get it approved. So it just hasn't been at this time. And that's why in the alternatives, the only reason we went with the vertical bulkhead going at a 90-degree return is because we cannot do any work currently on their property.
It just sounds to me like that it's not really even the wildlife's cost issue, or it shouldn't be, because to me the bulkhead cost, eliminating that would be offset by extending it onto their property. So it's just the wildlife has to give permission.
And that's where I know that we don't have permission from everyone at the wildlife refuge yet, because the owner of 27 Tilapy would be his revetment. He would pay for that. But at this time, we do need the permission from them, and they would need to go through their system and their process in order to have the revetment on that property. So it's not as simple as if it was just another private homeowner or any of that. There's more of a process that they have to go through in order to allow it onto the property.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just like any, national seashore issues or anything. They don't want their land touched, which is understandable. So it goes through a lot higher of a scrutiny. I mean, it has to go all the way up to the federal government basically to get approval. So, so that's the issue with that piece.
Many layers of review.
Yes.
Many.
Okay.
All right. So when should we continue this to? I don't know how long, Catherine, you all want or need for the information that we've asked for.
With the amount of information asked for, I would like to continue not to the next one, but to hearing. I think there's a good amount of information I have to get in order to get out there, mark the trees, determine the mitigation amount, and do some more cross sections on that bulkhead and more specific, reach out to contractors on their protocol to get you a more specific construction protocol. So I would like to do 2 hearings from now instead of the following hearing.
Okay.
That's the 27th.
27th.
Yep, 27th. I almost said 28th, but that's a Thursday.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we continue 27 Tillipy Run, 75 Tillipy Run, and 59 Tillipy Run to the next hearing on April 27th, 2022.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
May not be. Oh, you're still here. Okay, I told you we've done by 4:45, so we're getting close. And I vote aye as well.
All right, that's the end of our notice of intents. And now we have a request for certificate of compliance for 581 Riverview Drive. Theodora F. Casey, trustee, CO William G. Litchfield, Esquire, map 7J, parcel C56, SE 102576, pruning for view. And Bill, I believe I saw you on the call, and I think this was the one that was, they hadn't been maintaining the view, so it's basically more or less naturalized area, closing it out.
That is correct. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Bill Litchfield. I will be brief. I'm pleased, of course, given the length of your hearing, that we're now in daylight savings time, because I at least would have to drive home in the dark. You don't have to. Short version is that Mrs. Casey is in a long-term care facility, and I don't frankly know what was done in 2010 or 2011, but whatever was done, as Nikki has indicated, has grown up over the course of 10 years. So the new owners may be back in front of you for further view pruning, but in order to convey the property, we're looking for a certificate of compliance with a closing on Friday of this week.
Oops.
All right. And Nikki, I guess it sounds like you were in favor of it.
Yes. So, yeah, I'm fine with it. It's, regrown, nothing, you cannot tell that anything has been pruned if it ever was. So,
So it's
like
essentially
Bill
moot
said,
because-
he will have to come, or his clients will have to come before us to get any new permits to continue pruning. I just want to be clear so I don't have to deal with this later. Do you want a certificate of compliance issued that work was done? Or do you want it, I can't remember what we talked about. Do you want work was done or work was never completed?
I don't have a strong preference. I think it's probably correct to assume that some work was done. So I think a complete certificate would probably be more appropriate.
So work was completed and is in compliance instead of the work was never done
And
I
therefore,
think that's the safer bet because again, I don't know, but Thad Eldridge, who was involved, he didn't do the work, obviously did the plan, but it's his understanding that some work was done. He can't attest to it. But whatever, as we all agree, whatever was done can no longer be seen, so.
Sounds reasonable.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the certificate of compliance for 581 Riverview Drive.
Latin second.
Roll call vote, Bob,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
Mary,
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
all right, that ends all of our hearings. We have 2 minutes to be approved, January 26th and February 9th.
Before we get to that, especially since Elise is leaving, I want to throw in an item, and that is Janet, maybe you want to describe the meeting that your group is asking for.
I'm not the group.
The group that of which you are a
The
member.
official, the Chatham Town, the Energy and Climate Action Committee, which is just like us, another town-appointed committee, is working on developing a set of recommendations for the town to form the basis of a climate action plan. Some of those, to no one's surprise, touch on a lot of what we do and touch on a lot of conservation measures. And they would like to have a briefing and tell us what they're looking to do and what they're thinking about recommending to the Board of Selectmen. I'll tell you that it's the beginning of a long process. It's not the end of a process they've developed. And I have a group of volunteers was formed to help them develop the recommendations for natural resource protection. So it's a very broad set of recommendations. They'll have to be analyzed and figured out which ones are feasible in terms of having money available to do them, things like that. But a fair number of them involve changes to bylaws and regulations and town policies to increase the levels of protection, particularly for coastal resource areas, to increase resilience. So they want to come to us. They're meeting with all the town boards, zoning, planning, et cetera, that have anything to do with this, to let them know what's going on. So they've asked us for that meeting. So
They asked for a meeting on April 20th, which
yeah,
is
they asked me
one of our
about the
off
meeting
weeks.
date, and I said, I gave them the meeting dates and said the third Wednesday is generally not used. And that's available if you want to use that. And that's why they came back with the 20th of April.
And I've told them, I think that that's fine. I said 1 o'clock, and I think they said okay to that. So if you would all put a pencil into your calendars, a special meeting on April 20th at 1 with the climate and action, energy. What's the official name of
Energy and Climate Action.
Energy and Climate Action. Okay.
I do think, Nikki, I'm right about this, that it's going to be an official meeting, so it has to be noticed and announced and all the usual things, because it's two town committees meeting together.
Correct. So since it's the other committee that's trying to start this interaction, I would ask them to officially send out all the notice and agenda and everything. But yes, we will also have to post it as a Conservation Commission as well.
Who's the liaison to that committee?
Who's what?
Who's the staff liaison to that committee?
I have no idea.
Okay. Oh, I think it's Terry Whalen, maybe. I don't know, actually.
Will we get an invite on our emails for that?
So that was another question, whether we were willing to meet in person or wanted to do it virtual.
Yeah, I did ask them what their preference was, and they are meeting about it, I guess, but are discussing among themselves.
I think they had a slight preference for in person because they meet in person. And
they do. Okay.
Bob Wershafter is the chair of that committee. He's also on the planning board. They meet in person, so.
It's time to throw off the shackles, is it? I don't know. I'm willing to do it. Heck, I even went out to eat for the first time a couple of weeks ago. For 2 years. But if anybody would prefer not to, either say now or email me later. But we'll see what they ask for.
Yeah, so we'll plan for in person the annex, I would imagine, on April 20th at 1 o'clock. So we'll work on scheduling that. If you said Terry Whalen, Tim Whalen?
No, I don't know. I could be getting that confused with another committee that.
All right, I'll look into that and I will make
Okay.
sure to reach out to.
I don't know who it is.
Staff liaison. Get this cleared up and I will send out a similar type of invite, whether it's Teams or just Outlook or whatever, so that you all have the invite in your email calendar.
Yep. All right. So now back to you, Nikki, for
back to me for minutes for 126 and 29.
So Nikki, I have, instead of my usual thing, I've just, I tapped the 2 copies of the minutes that are in the Dropbox. I turned on track changes and made a couple of very minor changes. So if you want to work from those and collect anybody else's changes, you'll have them all in one place. And I'll exit out.
And then Bob Delvecchio already sent his changes via email.
Did you fix the word "the" that had a W at the end in 307 Bridge? It says increasing the with the W area of decking.
I haven't, but
okay, I didn't know if Janet had caught that.
Nope.
Okay.
You are a more careful reader than I am.
I don't know.
Scan them.
Just popped up.
I scan them. I look for my name to make sure that they don't say.
I look for your name too, Janet.
And if we all do that, we're covering it.
There was no preamble in either one of them, as there usually is. Meeting was called in order, blah blah blah. But I don't know if will be added later. I just noted that was gone. On the 26 minutes, right at the very, very end, it says it's currently recommended to continue meeting virtually. But I thought we decided also to meet in person for a work session in April.
Yeah, we are supposed to meet in person on the the 6th.
6th, yes, okay.
I won't be able to be there in person.
You'll be there virtually?
I can be there virtually, but I can't be there in person.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be gone. I have a wedding.
Oh, Bob is gone too.
Yeah, I have a wedding that week in Florida, so I won't be around.
Okay.
Well, the 6th is my mother's 90th birthday, so I've got to be with her.
Right.
Actually, I'm not going to be able to be there in person either.
I threatened all of you that I was not going to be stuck in the office by myself if I showed up.
Okay, who's going to be there?
I could be there in person.
Well, can let me just, I was planning, I had concerns about meeting in the small meeting room for a work session as our first attempt at a hybrid. I don't think that room is equipped the way that the large meeting room is with all of the cameras that Channel 18 uses. Dallas, if you're there and you're hearing this, I could be wrong and correct me. I'm not sure that the small room has like all the screens that you need that show the people who are remote and project it all to make it all. I don't know. I'm not aware that room.
Hey, Janet, it's Dallas here from Channel 18. Yeah, we don't have all the screens, but there is one screen and it is capable of doing hybrid.
And so their cameras are in the room too, to be able to the people who are watching can see the people in the room?
Yep, exactly.
Okay. Good to know.
So it's hybridized.
Sounds on the ball.
So we'll be our first experience with hybrid.
Let's test it then.
Yeah. And it's a work session. I think that's a better one to test it at anyway.
Yeah.
This is Mark at Channel 18. I would suggest you guys come in to test before you wanted to do some work.
Yes, Mark, I will come in or come downstairs and work with you within the next couple days on how
Yeah,
it works.
it might be good to have a member there with us and also a member at home so that everybody can see both sides of the equation and we can work out any issues that might arise.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I will, maybe the best thing would be to send out again some sort of invite for maybe Karen. I am pegging you since you said you will not be there, but you could be hybrid. So you could be our hybrid person, and then if Janet, Bob, or Elise could come in and be our person.
We could have more. We have
as long as we don't have a quorum.
No, no quorum. Right. So just two of you.
Yeah, just two. Okay.
I'm happy to do individual tests with anybody as we get closer. So.
Yeah, I think this. Well, okay. So yeah, I'll volunteer to go in, and Karen's volunteered for a remote test.
Perfect.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so we were on minutes, and that's just what I was just saying in that at the end of the minutes for the 26th, January 26th, I think we also agreed to meet in person for the first work session in April. I didn't really have much anything else. Other than the preamble stuff. All right, anybody else? Sounds like not. And so.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes for January 26, 2022 and February 9th, 2022 with the changes noted.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
No, you're still there. I vote aye. I told you it'd be 4:45, and we made it by 2 minutes.
4:45.
Wow.
Just like I planned.
Well, we knew it was going to be a long one.
Well, I didn't think it was going to be quite this long, but it was.
So. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. Okay, thank you all for
adjourn.
A long one. Yes. Oh yeah, we need one more motion.
Yeah.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Latin second.
Roll call vote. Bob.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
And I vote aye. And how about you, Cheryl? You can vote on this one.
Yeah, you get to vote on this.
Sounds great. Aye.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all. See you. We're off next week. We're off next week.
Off next
Off
week.
next week. Yay.
Yay. See you. Bye-bye.